Hello there, movie fans and cult fanatics. Just interrupting your regularly scheduled program briefly because we passed another milestone recently, one that completely passed us by. We weren't even paying attention, and before we knew it, we had 309 subscribers, which I don't know if it's probably gone up a little bit by the time you hear this, but yeah, we were amazed. We hit the 300 subscribers milestone, and it doesn't feel like 2 minutes since we were giving the 200 subscribers video to you and asking you to pick a movie for us, which, by the way, we have for us to review later in the year. So we did not expect to reach 300 this quickly. Obviously, we're growing all the time, and we want to keep doing that. So, but yeah, we wanted to take this brief time to say thank you to every one of you who has subscribed, everyone that's enjoying the episodes, that might have shared it or told a friend. We don't get a whole lot of interaction, so you can always feel free to comment on YouTube or to contact us on social media, which you can always find via our link trees. If there is something you want us to cover or you wanted to address any of the things that we talk about in the episodes, by all means, we're quite social people. We're willing to have conversations and things with people and get involved.
He is. He's social. I just like to say, kitchen at parties kind of shit.
So yeah, that other voice you can hear is the other half of the podcast, DK. And yeah, DK, it has to be said, the Cult Classics has been a roaring success, which is probably responsible for a good amount of that number of subscribers. So
I'm sure they're just like people talking nonsense. I do appreciate the fact that you said we were paying no attention, which is pretty much my MO most of the time. So yeah, it's been really great, and thank you everybody. We couldn't have got this without you, and if you like it, please help spread the word, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, tell your enemies. That I can't think of a better punishment for them, really. Yeah, we've got more stuff coming up over the next year, more movies, more cult stuff. Hopefully more interviews, us making asses of ourselves. Yep.
Speaking of which, this episode you're about to see or hear is our 50th full official movie review, believe it or not. And because it's a special event, we've reached 300 subscribers. It's our 50th episode. It is a very special film that we're reviewing and an extra long review. DK, do you want to reveal to people what it is?
No, I'm going to be churlish. Keep listening.
Yeah, listen out. It's going to be quite apparent within, I think, about 4 seconds when we conclude.
If we tell them, then they're going to miss our radar application.
That's very true. Yes, our application for the RSC. So yeah, stay tuned for that, and really do enjoy it. We had such a blast, and hopefully that comes across in the recording. And it couldn't have been a nicer bit of timing than to hit our 50th episode, and as I said, as a way to celebrate our 300th subscriber. That was several subscribers ago now, but if you want us to feel guilty that we haven't got anything else planned, then get us to 400.
Yeah, stick around, and as I said, there's more to come, and please get involved. You're more than welcome. We beg of you.
And yeah, if having checked all of the sort of various analytics and stuff, if anybody that's in Belgium that apparently seems to be a huge fan of us on audio wants to kind of get in touch and explain what in particular appeals to the Belgian fan, and I for one would love to hear that.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, no, wherever you are in the world, we're really glad you appreciate just a couple of northern blokes talking crap about films that they love and occasionally don't love. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to cross over to our very special guests ourselves to reveal what this episode will be all about. So off we go.
Michael, I'm bored. What plaything can you offer me today?
An obscure podcast in the YouTube system, Your Majesty. The inhabitants refer to it as the Silver Screen Podcast.
How normal it looks.
Defenders of the Earth Defender.
Out of the sky, his rockets ignite. Jets into battle, flying faster than light.
Flash Gordon.
Welcome, fellow cultists. And if our shameful opening parody or our awful rendition of the Defenders of the Earth theme didn't give it away, this episode we're going back to the 80s for a look at the legendary Mike Hodges directed answer to Star Wars, and some might say all-round cheese fest, Flash Gordon. And it's a very special one. Not only is this thing a childhood favourite, not only are we recording this from what feels like the surface of the sun, but if you recall our Evil Dead episode a few months back, it was revealed that my fellow Silver Screen host Mike considers this his all-time favourite cult movie. As such, it would be just mean to leave him out of proceedings on this one. So without further ado, here's the Silver Screen's own Empress of the Hour, who I have no doubt is looking forward to what's to come. Mike Wilson, how you doing, fella?
DK, I love you, but we only have 2 hours to record a podcast. Get on with it.
Bastard.
Lying bitch.
Oh, and so it begins. I think it's pretty much safe to say you've been waiting for this one a little while, yeah?
I've been waiting for this one since I was about 6 years old. Yeah.
You've not progressed very much, have you? Let's be fair.
Some would argue I'm still in the same mental state, yeah.
Well, aside from this, have you been watching anything good this past week?
You know me, I've been watching a ton of stuff at the cinema and everything. So I did the Barbenheimer double bill that everybody was, insisting. So I watched Barbie, then Oppenheimer. Reviews for those and everything else I watch are always on my Letterboxd. And yeah, what else did I see? There was a preview screening of Joyride not long ago that I quite enjoyed. Rude but entertaining. And then just a bunch of other stuff. Usually mainly stuff that's at the cinema, or that I'm supposed to get to the cinema to see and then don't, and then watch on DVD instead later. I did watch Dunkirk for the first time and really enjoyed it. So there you go.
I still yet to see that one. As painful as it's been, I'm sure you've had to force yourself to watch today's movie too, yeah?
Yeah. You not only watched today's movie, you know fine well that when it came to, what do they call it, the Amazon Prime Day, and I saw that the 4K box set with all the goodies and extra discs and 5-disc set and everything was reduced by 10 quid, so it was 40 instead of 50. I leapt straight on that, and I've been working my way through that set and loving the fact that I have it and reading the booklets, watching the Life After Flash documentary and everything. So yeah, I feel like I'm currently a Flash expert.
That's fantastic. So now I know you'll be giving this 5 out of 5. I'm going to move right along and introduce my second guest joining us this evening to discuss the classic. And it's another cult classics virgin and newest member of the Silver Screen family, Rune. How are you this fine summer's eve?
Oh, I'm good. Staying inside.
Fantastic. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right. So I'm an actor. I'm from Charleston. I do stage and film acting. And yes, this is a brand new film for me. I'm actually in film school right now doing post-production and cinematography. And I had to take a film as art class last semester. And we had to write a paper about any film we wanted to. So since I knew this was coming up, I wrote my paper on this.
I'm sure your tutor was so glad.
It was the dean of the department who was teaching the class that had to read this paper. And he was actually like, I really need to watch this now.
Funnily enough, that dean was Max von Sydow. So he was quite
And then I rewatched it again this morning.
Oh my goodness. So the pain's fresh.
No, it's so fresh.
I should let our listeners know that Rune and I first met when they graciously agreed to read out one of my short stories live during the pandemic for those stuck at home. Isn't that right, Rune?
Yes, right. It was such a good story. I love that one.
Oh, it's very sweet. I mean, we'll try and arrange for that actually to be uploaded onto the podcast feed at some point, so you can see just how a good performance can elevate mediocre material.
That is not true. It was fantastic writing. I was so in love with it.
Well, it was very gracious of you to read it. You really brought it to life.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's a recently new thing on here, but I wanted to ask, just to give the listeners a feel for your vibe, what have you been, other than this, what have you been watching recently? Anything outstanding?
Me? Let's see. Well, DK, you know that I'm a judge for a film contest. So I get to watch a lot of like indie stuff coming through our little, what do we call that? It's a competition. No, Festival.
Yeah,
That's the word.
I was trying to find the word myself.
Oh man, my brain. So I get to watch a lot of fun stuff from indie filmmakers like that, and that's a lot of fun. But as far as like stuff that people have been really into, I haven't been able to do the Barbenheimer yet. I'm in the middle of a show, and so my time is very like school, show, and sleep right now.
Oh, so it doesn't give you much time.
It doesn't. So yeah, I haven't seen much of that, but I did start like season 2 of The Witcher. Does that count?
I've not actually watched that. Everybody
No?
keeps going on about that. I've never seen it.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good, and it's like video game based, so I feel like that's nerdy and within genre.
Oh, definitely.
Fantasy as well, isn't it? So,
But yeah, no, I haven't gotten to watch a lot of anything lately.
Well, to put you on the spot, I mean, it's something I always ask the guests on here, and one of the reasons we're currently discussing this episode, thanks to Mike. But if you had to choose, what would be your all-time favorite cult movie?
Rocky Horror Picture Show.
oh yes, that was one of the ones I wanted on the list for next year.
Y'all haven't even done it? Oh my gosh.
No,
we
haven't done it yet.
We haven't guessed if we do it.
We have to talk about how Richard O'Brien is in Flash Gordon.
Oh, that's definitely going to come up.
But yeah, it's my favorite. My dad and I used to watch a lot of Mystery Science Theater when I was a kid too. So like,
that's why you're friends with DK.
You're going to say this is why we're friends.
So that particular like campiness is near and dear to my heart. But Rocky Horror is like my first like great cult love, I think.
Oh, fantastic! We'll have to add that to the list of cult ones on our letterbox.
Well, I made the request, and now we have a guest just waiting. I'm just saying. So.
We'll get back to it. So yeah, it's that letterbox is becoming quite a little list, Mike, and I'm guessing it's inevitable that at some point people are going to start choosing the same movie. So at that point, you might have to evolve into a ranked kind of top 10.
Yeah, where if more than one person picked. It hasn't happened yet, mind you. There's nobody duplicated a pick, so
yeah, it's quite a nice little selection there going forward.
I'm just writing down to remind myself to put it onto that letterbox list because I forgot I'd actually started, and then I had to go through every episode and was like, "What were people's choices?" So now, if I write it as we find out, then I don't have to. Yeah.
Well. So on to today's. Now, Flash Gordon initially went into production in the late 70s when producer Dino De Laurentiis, and if you want his other credits, please check out his IMDb page. You'll find many, many cult classics listed. Went ahead and hired Nicholas Roeg and writer Michael Ayling to develop a script based on Alex Raymond's comic book strip of the same name. De Laurentiis had been itching to make a Flash Gordon movie since the 1960s, especially after having relative success with his 2 previous comic book adaptations, Danger Diabolik and Barbarella. After an agreement with Federico Fellini fell through, no doubt leading to being name-checked as Aura's pet in this, he had recently declined an offer by a young director to work on a Flash Gordon movie, refusing to grant him the rights and forcing said director to leave to make his own Flash Gordon with blackjack and hookers, and thus Star Wars was born. Now, after Roeg left the project and it was turned down by Sergio Leone, De Laurentiis hired director Mike Hodges, known for the Michael Caine classic Get Carter, with scripting duties handled by Lorenzo Semple Jr., who is well known for political thrillers such as The Parallax View and 3 Days of the Condor, and strangely enough, the Adam West Batman series. Semple Jr. would later go on to say, Dino wanted to make Flash Gordon humorous. At the time, I thought that was a possible way to go, but in hindsight, I realized it was a terrible mistake. We kept fiddling around with the script, trying to decide whether to be funny or realistic. That was a catastrophic thing to do, with so much money involved. I never thought the character of Flash in the script was particularly good, but there was no pressure to make it any better. Dino had a vision of a comic strip character treated in a comic style. That was silly, because Flash Gordon was never intended to be funny. The entire film got way out of control. Now, over the next couple of years, production took place on the movie, primarily in the UK at Shepperton and Elstree Studios. Unfortunately, a dispute between Sam Jones and De Laurentiis resulted in Jones leaving the project during post-production, with De Laurentiis having the lead's voice for the most part, dubbed over by actor Peter Marinka, and thus scuppering any hope for an already planned sequel. The film was released on 6th of December 1980, and while performing strongly in the UK and Italy, the latter due to its featuring some well-known Italian actors at the time, it performed poorly in other markets, despite being number one at the box office in the US in its opening weekend. It garnered mixed reviews upon release, with some loving it and some hating it in equal measure. Sam Jones was nominated that year for a Golden Raspberry Award for his performance. Nevertheless, over the years, the film has remained incredibly popular, with it sitting on 83% over on Rotten Tomatoes and featuring in their 100 Best Sci-Fi Movies list. And for those that haven't, and why not, seen it or are itching to watch it again, Flash Gordon is currently available on streaming services, as well as DVD, Blu-ray and 4K, which I, again, feel sure Mike's going to bring up at some point. Normally, we do try and reach out to someone to do with the production of whatever movie we're discussing. Sometimes we're successful, other times less so. This one was difficult in that many of the people we contacted weren't available. Some just downright didn't reply. And I've got to give a particular shout out to Ornella Mooty's agent. I'm sure Ornella is fantastic, but after writing what can only be described as an essay on how we would be respectful in an interview, the agent got back with one word, which was no. And I'm sure he just, wrote that in the back of his limo, but there we go. As a result, we couldn't really speak to anyone regarding this episode's movie. However, as part of Mike's aforementioned wonderful purchase, there is a note from the late Mike Hodges himself, may he rest in peace, which at the end of the day is almost like having him here to speak to us himself. So without further ado, here, read by Mike, is a word from Mr. Hodges on the experience of working on the movie directly. Over to you, fella.
Yeah, well, I did want to kind of have some kind of contribution. As DK has mentioned, we've tried to contact some people from the production, and I did recently purchase the 4K, special edition with all of the various goodies and things of Flash Gordon, and it did have in a rather cool thing, which is an intro by the director Mike Hodges. So it is kind of like he's contributing to the podcast in a way, because sadly, as you know, he did pass away at the very end of 2022, so not long gone. So yeah, and this was it explains briefly that this was because he was unable to film another actual interview in person, because it was this was due to come out in 2021, so it was during 2020 when there was a period of self-isolation and nobody could meet up. So yeah, he just says, unable to do that, he contributed this, and I just wanted to share his thoughts on the film, because I think it was probably the last thing he probably would have said about it. So give him that word. So he says, in my more facetious moments, I've described Flash Gordon as a metaphor for Uncle Sam's foreign policy, naively meddling in territories with little knowledge of the country or its culture. Witness Vietnam and Iraq. It was, of course, a preposterous idea. Gordon, unlike the US State Department, is an innocent, accidentally rocketed with Dale into an alien world. My journey as its director was not dissimilar. I, too, was an innocent entering unknown territory, ignorant of the original 1930s strip cartoon by Alex Raymond, ignorant of cinema special effects, and not particularly interested in science fantasy. Despite this, and for reasons I still don't totally understand, Dino De Laurentiis was determined to have my name in the director's chair. Despite my doubts and with some trepidation, I agreed. I'm glad I did. The next 2 years were spent on an almost constant learning curve. On my previous movies, I'd kept a tight control over all aspects of the production. With Flash, that wasn't possible. For a start, Dino was a quixotic producer with many great ideas, but an equal number of crazy ones. I had first to find a way of dealing with him. But not just him, he had chosen Danilo Donati as the designer of both sets and costumes. Danilo's talent was immense, and I loved every moment of working with him. Trouble was, he didn't speak a word of English, and I not a word of Italian. I'm not even sure he ever read the script. That means every day was an adventure. I'd wait to see what Danilo would present me with, and with whatever that was, I'd improvise, literally make it up as we went along. Luckily, I had a wonderful crew and cast who rose to every twist and turn in this process. In short, we had fun. I genuinely feel this sense of freedom and invention accounts for the movie's effervescence. We were mixing all the right ingredients in the hope that the souffle would rise. It did. Will it have legs? That's a question you can never answer when you're actually making a movie. Will it last, or will it vanish like so many do? On my first movie, Get Carter, we went into production so quickly and it was shot in such a white heat I had no time for such fancy thoughts. With Flash Gordon, it was very different. I confess to sometimes wondering if it would ever see the light of a projector. I was on tenterhooks waiting for one crucial problem to be solved: how to create the galactic skies in which all the action takes place. But once our brilliant special effects team had cracked it and I started seeing those magical skies they created, I knew it would reach screens around the planet. Did Flash Gordon have legs? It seems it did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be writing this 40 years after I made it. So yeah, that was
nice.
My thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for that, Mike. I'm sure Mr. Hodges was pleased that his work has held up for so long and developed such a loyal fan base. Not only this one, but several of his movies have stood the test of time and been taken to heart by so many people. Now, regular listeners to the show will know that it's at this point I usually do a little deep dive into behind the scenes on the production and hopefully unearth a little bit of trivia that you may hitherto have been unaware of. But as we all know, this is Mike's favourite movie. So, well, cult movie. So it would be churlish, nay, downright unfair of me to take the duties this week when I can see him out of the corner of my eye, jumping up and down with eagerness to talk about it. And yeah, Mike, that's right. I can see him jumping up and down from 900 miles away. My memory may be for shit, but my peripheral vision is bang on.
I was going to say we are currently living the various different types of weather torment that Ming inflicted. I'm undergoing the hot hail and pouring down rain. You two are experiencing the volcanoes and scorching heat. Not in the same place, unfortunately.
My wife commented on that the other day. When we were watching the film, when it was putting all the different climates up, I went, "Oh, it's like the weather now." And she looked at me. She says, "You're the one wearing the Flash Gordon shirt."
I love that shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And so now I, DK, here and now, give you, Mike Wilson, this kingdom to rule over as your own. So go for it, big guy.
As I said, you did kind of touch on we didn't get a chance to talk to anybody, but I feel like I weirdly have got a kind of unfettered access to a lot of the people involved in this via, and I have to shout it out again, the documentary Life After Flash, which is one of the 5 discs included in the 4K set, which I just watched yesterday, and I have to say is a fantastic watch, just not even just as a fan of the movie, but as somebody who enjoys documentary filmmaking and, you know, the lives of people and the way films are made. It's a fantastic watch, and I highly recommend it, but especially if you do like the film. As of sort of being able to watch that, it means that I can answer a few of the questions that DK was alluding to in regards to like the feud between Sam Jones and Dino De Laurentiis, which is probably the first thing that I should bring up. And
Mike,
as
do
I was,
you need that rock music in the background?
Oh yeah. Before I do that, then I'll put on our behind the scenes bit of music that hopefully will, you know, accompany my droning voice, because I've got quite a lot to get to. So I tried to find something as suitably Queen-esque as I could. It's a poor imitation, but you know, you'll just have to make do, I suppose. And we definitely don't have Freddie Mercury here to provide vocals fully. But so yeah, the first thing that I should probably get into, because I was intrigued and DK wanted to know as well what the situation was with regards to the feud between Sam Jones and Dino De Laurentiis. And as I was saying to DK off air, there really isn't any satisfactory one thing that I can point to. It seems like there's a lot of things that I should go into, and it's kind of a make your own mind up. People fell into camps type situation. But ultimately, if you want my 2 cents on this, as I gave to DK, frankly, both Sam Jones and Dino De Laurentiis were just being dicks. So just to give you some background of the things that I learned, for example, Melody Anderson said that she was hired and had to be in London like the next day straight away. Everything was really quick. She had to dye her hair because she's naturally blonde, or naturally, has it blonde. And because Dino wanted this, this view of Dale Arden, and apparently he didn't also like her eye color, so he made her wear colored contact lenses. And she says, that he was quite, not a bad person, but quite a tyrant when it came to these kinds of things. And he did make her cry on more than one occasion, which, make of that what you will. A lot of the cast and crew said that he argued a lot, De Laurentiis, with the director, Mike Hodges, and that whenever De Laurentiis turned up on set, they were terrified and they couldn't get any work done because everybody was on tenterhooks and he was always unsatisfied with something. A lot of it boils down to, I think, some of the cast say that he thought he was making an epic, and Hodges and everyone else were very aware that it should be more, camp, tongue-in-cheek. You can't take it too seriously. Although the acting was taken seriously, but, they knew they weren't making, something that would be highly regarded as a, epic piece of fantastically constructed, multi-million epic cinema. But, yeah, so whatever the reason, he was kind of a presence on set that caused a lot of issues, because, like I said, that slowed down the work and everything. And as Brian Blessed regales in the documentary, it basically all boiled over one day when Mike Hodges just lost his temper and said in Blessed's words, "No, Dino, you must fuck off. We can't get anything done." Which I think, yeah, kind of exemplifies the kind of person that they were, really. So yeah, well, let me see, where was I? As regards to Sam Jones, obviously De Laurentiis is no longer with us, but his widow was interviewed, and she's not too kind to Sam Jones, as you might imagine. She just says that he was kind of a, typical big ego, young, emotional person, a prima donna. Some of the cast have also said the same thing. Some people have said that he listened to his representation, and they were kind of holding out for more money or being typical sort of Hollywood hard ass. And he was wrong to listen to them. There's stories of him getting carried away with drink and drugs and, the Hollywood lifestyle. But yeah, so basically that, like I said, that was a clash of egos, I think, in that situation. Because there's also people, some people on that side say that Dino wasn't vindictive, but at the same time, I did want to kind of push back against what DK was saying about Sam Jones walked away from the project, because he didn't. He went in December of I think in 1979, the recording year. He went home for Christmas expecting the call to come back and dub his lines. That call never came. De Laurentiis just basically called somebody else without telling him, and that's been regarded by some of the cast as being a very unprofessional, not very nice move. Certainly Peter Wingard says that he had to register his protest with the producers and director at the way Sam Jones was treated, and it's just, like I said, I don't think there was any one defining incident. It was just that the two egos clashed. So, wow. Having said that, Sam Jones, after the event, did apparently come for De Laurentiis again by suing him for having not made movie 2 and 3, as he had a 3-film contract, which of course was thrown out as ridiculous since movies 2 and 3 were never made. So that was one of those kind of superfluous Hollywood legal situations. But yeah, it all just comes down to, like I said, personal situations and being careful who you upset, and a lot of personal stuff in Sam Jones's life, which the documentary gets into, which I won't here. There's tragedies, there's all kinds of things going on, and he comes out the other end, I think, quite well in the documentary. But you can go watch that for yourself, and I would recommend it. In terms of the making of the film, though, everyone involved basically seems to think that they made the best film that they could. There's a lot of love and respect played to the Flash Gordon comic strips of the 40s and beyond. Certainly Brian Blessed was a big fan of those and wanted to, apparently, would go around the playground pretending to be Voltan before being cast. So that was a bit of fortuitous casting for him. A lot of the people say that, there were no superheroes without Flash Gordon, even though he might not have superpowers. So there's a lot of kind of respect paid to that. In terms of the making of the film, apparently Max von Sydow was a bit unsure of how to play Ming, and on his first entrance was given advice by Brian Blessed, who said basically play it like a magician, come in with all flourish and use your hands and everything. When it came to filming some of Sam Jones's scenes and coverage, apparently von Sydow would be in the full costume, the full regalia, and Sam Jones told him, "You don't have to, you're not on camera, don't worry about that." And von Sydow apparently said to him, "I'm going to perform with you when I'm not on camera exactly the same as I would when I am, and I expect the same from you." So yeah, there was a level of kind of intensity and professionalism. I see a lot of them took the acting of this quite seriously. So yeah. In the end, by the way, I should have said that Dino De Laurentiis and Sam Jones did eventually make things up. Sam Jones, through all his various things, basically came out of it saying that he had been an ass and he takes a lot of responsibility for it. And he humbled himself basically and called up and said, "Whatever the situation, apologise for my part of it. Let's just put it behind us." And at that point, De Laurentiis was apparently very, humble about it as well, and just, forget about it. It's water under the bridge. And so at least they did get a chance to make up before he passed away, which was a nice thing to hear. So yeah. I just have a few other random personal things about the making of the movie, which I found interesting. Obviously, I've mentioned it was very fast and kind of kinetic. There wasn't a lot of room to breathe for the actors, but they do all say they had fun. It was still a great thing, and I think that kind of shows through in the finished product. But just to give you an example for one thing that De Laurentiis did as the producer, there was some debate about who to cast as Hans Zarkov, with it being between Topol and another actor whose name I forget. And De Laurentiis apparently asked if anybody had a coin, said, "I make some of my best decisions this way," and literally flipped a coin for it, saying heads would be Topol and tails would be this other guy. It landed on heads, and that's why Topol got cast in the film. So absolutely incredible. Yeah.
What a way for your career stuff to be determined.
I know, right? And this is the guy who's in charge of, like, hundreds of millions of dollars of studio money and everything. And he's like, flip a coin.
Flip of the coin. So, oh, my.
I have to add this as well. The initial idea for the planet of Arborea was that everything was going to be pink. But basically, they were forced to change that because the cameramen refused to shoot it. They said, you can't make a pink tree. It looks absolutely ridiculous, and we'll be laughed out of the out of films and out of Hollywood. So they basically made them repaint it back to tree colors, which is. I kind of want to see what the pink Arborea would have looked like personally.
There's got to be production photos or something, right?
Yeah, there's got to be at least one thing, but I couldn't find anything, sadly. When it came to Clytus, Peter Wingard would not die, apparently. He really wanted to be around in case there was a sequel. So when they were filming that scene, he insisted on various different things. He gave Mike Hodges a ton of other ideas of maybe I can do this, or maybe that, maybe I can get away from it. And Mike Hodges, again, apparently got so infuriated with this on a work day when not a lot was happening that he went, no, you're fucking dead. Just drop, you're killed, get on with it. I can only imagine how exasperated that guy must have been quite a lot of the time. But Wingard still insists that the hand that picks up Ming's ring at the end of the movie is Clytus, and he would have had a way back and would have made it into that sequel if it was ever made, and he's kind of sad it didn't get made. Just a couple of last things then to finish off this section from me. First of all, as I mentioned to DK off air, apparently Flash Gordon was the Queen's favourite movie, as in the Queen of England, who just passed away. She met Brian Blessed at a Royal Variety performance and apparently said to him, oh, I have to say, me and the family all absolutely love Flash Gordon. We watch it at least once a year. Could you please give me a quick Gordon's alive? To which Brian Blessed gave her the best booming Gordon's alive that you would usually expect of him. And she apparently smiled and just, oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much. So yeah, you've got to love that. As I say, you've got to watch this documentary for more of these kinds of tales. There's far more, but that one was one that tickled me. And finally, another one, just to finish off on this, Mike Hodges apparently did ask Dino De Laurentiis why he was hired to make this movie, because he's completely the wrong man, in his words, for the job, having done things like Get Carter and stuff. De Laurentiis' reply was, Mike, I like your face. So there you have it. That was the making and some behind-the-scenes facts about Flash Gordon that I discovered from the documentary, which, as I say, thoroughly recommend. It's very entertaining as well as informative.
That is incredible. Where's this documentary at?
Oh, I don't know if you can probably find it on streaming because it's a movie in its own right, and it came out, I think, it came out fairly recently because it was after they'd made the 2 TED films and stuff, and it is just called Life After Flash by I think she's called Lisa Downs, the filmmaker. She also did one called Life After the Navigator afterwards, about Flight of the Navigator. So you can seek it out, and it might be streaming. If not, it's definitely available to buy, and it's in most of the extended or 5-disc versions of the Flash Gordon physical media. So yeah, like myself.
I can't wait to see that. Just with what you told me about Brian Blessed.
Oh, his stories are great. Like I said, that's just a couple of the stories I touch on. There's another story. I may as well go into it because I've just remembered it now. Where, like I said, De Laurentiis was very hands-on with a lot of stuff, but apparently he just, for whatever reason, I don't know if he was intimidated or what, but he would listen to Brian Blessed. So he said to Brian Blessed, "We have to get you as he says, a sword. And Brian Blessed said, "What? What's a bloody sword? You mean a sword? Well, what? Do we need a sword?" And then apparently Brian Blessed said, "No, I don't need a sword. The whole idea of Voltan is that he's the toughest guy in the room. He's super strong. He beats the crap out of anybody without a weapon. That's the entire point." And apparently De Laurentiis was like, "Oh, okay, big guy. Okay, we'll get you a club or something. All right, calm down."
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's absolutely fantastic.
Yes, I've definitely got to see that. I mean, well, I know I'm knocking on a little now, but I still didn't see this in cinemas. I wanted to. I remember seeing a TV news report on the opening of it, and the reporter was stood outside a cinema. I forget which one. It might have been one of the old ABC cinemas. And I remember it had that huge banner outside, the one with Sam in the red top with the floating city behind him. Mm. And yeah, I so wanted to see it. My friend Nigel, who listeners will have heard on the Buckaroo Banzai episode, he bought the vinyl single of the Queen theme. And I obviously you'll remember it was littered with lines from the movie. And even though we'd not seen it, it fired, my imagination even more. And at that point, maybe because it was a UK kind of focus production, it was everywhere. It was shops, TV, it was on cereal packets. Quite ironic when you think about it. Flash Gordon cereal.
Well, that's pretty phenomenal. I thought it was really interesting the part that you said that the man who played Ming would stay in costume even when he wasn't on camera.
Yeah, he was like really professional about it, and a lot of the actors say, the actors that were in it say, like, they acted seriously. They didn't think that the film would be, serious. They weren't under any delusions, but they said you have to play it seriously, otherwise it comes off wrong.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So,
no, absolutely. You have to commit to it, and I think that just from an actor's perspective, like being in costume really helps with, especially like a really off the wall kind of a character, to like be in that mentality and really hold on to it. So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
Like,
and yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I do love that Queen played the music for this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was another thing. Like everybody says, that music just elevated so much. I mean, it's not that it's bad without the music, but the perfect choice of like the rock soundtrack. And as people say, you've got to remember, Queen in 1980 were the band. They were huge. This was a big coup, and yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, and when I watched it the first time a few months ago, I was like, wait a second, is that? No. And sure enough, there it was.
I had no idea that Queen were big in America. It wasn't until I watched this documentary, as I said, that a lot of the American contributors were like, oh, this was off the back of Queen had just made it big because they'd released Another One Bites the Dust and We Will Rock You and all of those big singles.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so they had really broken the States as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we were in a bubble here in the UK. We just, as far as I'm concerned, Flash Gordon was a UK production, But,
that's fair.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fair.
But yeah, hearing all these Americans that grew up with it as well, and were like, I mean, some really famous people as well that they interview at these conventions that are like, love Flash Gordon. It was formative to my, to my career, my education as a filmmaker. And
that's amazing.
I can't remember. Of course, I'm forgetting all of them right now, but off the top of my head, I know Robert Rodriguez says that it was an influence on him. A lot of actors like Michael Rooker, Sean Gunn are in there talking about it and stuff. So Stan Lee talks about how,
oh my gosh,
it's an inspiration for the first superheroes and stuff. And yeah, it's just incredible.
That's incredible. Like, I have no basis into the actual comics series, like the comics or anything like that. I've not looked into any of that. So the film is all I've got, and it was delightfully campy.
Yeah. I think though that makes it kind of faithful to the comic book in a way that these things, a lot of things nowadays are kind of scared to do in that regard. If the comic is like that, because it is. I mean, it's a 1930s, 1940s pulp science fiction comic, so naturally it is. There's an awful lot of like fire the lightning death ray, use the mind control ring or whatever, and you can't really make that dark and gritty. There's only one way to go with it. So.
Gotta commit to it. It's fine.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that DK mentioned one of the people behind the sort of prep of the film was somebody that made the Batman TV series, because the 60s Batman and this are very much of a kind.
Oh yes, I love Adam West Batman too.
Yeah, absolutely. And nothing against the serious versions of Batman, but there is still something about that one as well that works, isn't there?
So, oh yeah, no, it's yeah, that's iconic for sure. So
definitely. Oh, bless.
Maybe we should go back to some of that more campy stuff for these films.
I think if it works, it works. But the problem is that people know that if you miss, then you've made a huge flop. But I mean, I think DK has some of the audience interaction where somebody says there are things that you could call like spiritual successors to this, and they mention things like Thor Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Absolutely, I can see Thor Ragnarok as a successor to Flash Gordon, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I had to wait more than a little while until it came out on video cassette. And yes, it was the old Betamax. I saw it, and well, you know what it's like when you're a kid. You rewatch it over and over until my dad had to take it back to the video store. It was on TV maybe a year after that, and we recorded it, and it was one of the go-to movies on rotation. And you've got to remember back then, Star Wars took forever, and I mean forever, to be released on tape. So while they made a huge impact in cinemas, it was and I use this phrase kindly, knockoffs, things like Battlestar Galactica, Flash Gordon, Battle Beyond the Stars, hell, even Star Crash, that got all the publicity and the whole media front. And Flash Gordon captured my imagination just as much as, if not more than, George Lucas's movies at the time. I was addicted to the old Filmation animated series, and while canon was a very loose term back then in sci-fi, I do remember trying to reconcile the animated series and the movie in my head. Now, I remember owning a set of vinyl reusable Flash Gordon stickers based on the original strips, but it was released to coincide with the movie's popularity. And one of my fondest memories is being at my great aunt's, and she had this huge drinks cabinet. I'm not saying anything about my aunt, but she had a huge drinks cabinet with glass doors, and it was ideal for making scenes with these stickers. And I would recreate scenes from the movie on those doors, almost as if they were action figures. So, I mean, yes, kids, things were much more simple without cell phones. But it's safe to say I was pretty obsessed with the movie, and it's one of the few films I can recite every line of it as it's playing. So what I was going to do before my computer decided, oh, I've had enough of this shit, is just ask, how about you? I mean, I'll start with you, Rune. You mentioned that you only watched it recently.
Yeah.
So did you just do it for the show, or was it?
So
did you come across it prior to this?
Right. No. Well, no. I knew that we were going to be reviewing this one, so it was on my list of things to do. But I was also taking a film as art class, and I watched it as my paper for that class. So, I was like, well, this will give me a great opportunity to like really dive deep into this film and watch it from the perspective of like an artistic eye, which is what I did. And yeah, it was great. My professor was like, oh, well, now I have to watch this film. So.
I can't believe a film professor hadn't seen it. What are they teaching you people?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I can't remember if it is he had never seen it or he hadn't seen it in such a long time. I don't think he had ever seen it, but Glenn, I'm sorry if I'm misremembering that. But yeah, so yeah, that was the first time I watched it. I watched it twice for my paper, and then I watched it again this morning.
All right. I mean, you move kind of in nerdish circles.
I do.
How much would you say, from across the water, how much would you say Flash Gordon, or at least this iteration, is regarded in the public eye in the US or in genre fandom in your experience? Is it just a minor blip?
I had never actually heard of it personally until you came and asked me about it, DK. So, but I have friends who are a few years older than me that when I posted about doing this podcast, they were like, oh my God, that's my favorite film. So I think it might be a slight generational thing. I was born the year this movie came out. So, but yeah, no, it's not one that has been on my radar in the nerdy circles at all. And now I've got to really keep an eye out to see if it's just something that has gone over my head somehow. But, yeah. I mean, my husband knew about it, but not a ton about it.
Had he seen it before, or?
Yes, he had seen it before, but ages and ages. So.
And what was his reaction to it?
He likes a good campy film. So he appreciates that probably more than I do. It depends on the element. Like I did enjoy watching this, but yeah, he likes a really good campy, goofy film sometimes. So he liked it. He enjoyed it.
Nice one.
I'm having to look at it from all these other perspectives because I'm also writing a paper on it and everything. So I'm like, what's this camera movement doing? And what are they trying to say? And so, but yeah, no, he likes stuff like this for sure. But.
Nice one. Well, what about you, Mike? What was your first experience with this, and what led to your obsession?
Oh, well, that's as I alluded to. Mine goes back to my own childhood. I never saw it in cinemas either, by the way. But it's a weird one. My dad is responsible, but not in the way you would think. He's actually the world's biggest Queen fan. So he had like the vinyl, the cassette, and everything of the Flash Gordon soundtrack because it was a Queen album. So he bought it and he loved it. And as you sort of said earlier, there's so many lines of dialogue and stuff from the film incorporated into those tracks and on that album that he used to listen to all the way through that he would kind of, jump around the living room, rocking out, and then quoting lines from Flash Gordon at me since I was, super young, because I was born 2 years after the film came out. So I just have very vivid early memories of my dad jumping around giving it like, Gordon's alive. What do you mean, Flash Gordon approaching? Dispatch War Rocket Ajax to bring us his body. And my dad just fully going for it. And then I was like, what is this fucking thing that he's doing? What's going on? So if you're from the UK like we are, DK, you probably know that it became a perennial bank holiday favorite, this movie that was on.
Yeah.
Every time there was a bank holiday, it was on TV. So I didn't even own it for the longest time. It was just that when it came on, my dad, knowing it from the Queen soundtrack, would be like, oh, Flash Gordon, we got to watch Flash Gordon. We know all the lines and we could, the soundtracks by Queen and whatever else. So I ended up just watching it time after time, every time there was a bank holiday, because my dad he's not a big fan of James Bond, weirdly enough. I kind of discovered that by myself as the other thing that was always on bank holidays. But my dad was very much like, we watched Flash Gordon. My mum was very much, we're watching the first 2 Superman films on a bank holiday. So there was a bit of a film education going on there. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I was so young when I first saw it. Maybe it was because I had the dialogue ingrained in me first, but I just loved Flash Gordon. It captured my young imagination. And every time a bank holiday rolled round and my dad won the argument, I was like, I'm going to miss seeing Marlon Brando phone in those few lines, but we'll watch Flash Gordon. Why not? But as people know, Superman the movie is also a huge favorite of mine, by the way. I'm just mocking. But yeah. So yeah, I just watched it time and time again, but obviously it was on TV in the middle of the day. We're talking 3 in the afternoon or something. So then, as people know, if you know me, I don't talk about it much, but I do happen to have a film degree. So when I was doing a film studies course at university, I was like, I'm going to have to buy my favorite films and own them because, what self-respecting film student doesn't? And I have a student loan I can use now and technically claim it's, it's for work. So yeah, I did buy Flash Gordon for the first time on the sort of silver DVD. And my mind was blown because I had no idea, since it was obviously cut for TV. Some of the swear words in the extreme moments, it blew my mind, because this was my childhood, equivalent of Batman, the TV series, sort of Adam West or whatever. And I just thought it was corny and camp. And then I watched it with some friends who also had the same experience on DVD. And when Timothy Dalton started giving it, oh, you lying bitch, freeze, you bloody bastards, we just burst out laughing and we're like, we don't remember this bit. What is going on? And the scene when Clytus dies, we had never seen that, with the eyeballs popping out and the little tongue bleeding. I was like, what is this? This is like another world we've just discovered.
Oh, that's fantastic. This is what I love about doing these shows. I mean, by and large, movies, they come and go, especially these days where, every release is supposedly an event. But you get that odd gem that, despite its flaws or how it's looked down by some, it captures the imagination of people, and however niche. And it just becomes so much bigger than this 90-minute diversion. And I love hearing that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I mean, with that in mind, I've got to ask you two, what are your general impressions this time around? I mean, we'll talk specifics in a moment, but do you think it holds up, or do you kind of take that view that we're looking at it through a nostalgia vision only?
I'll let you go first, Rune, on this one.
Okay. So, especially when rewatching it today, I was like, wow, there's some things here that are a little sketchy, honestly. So I would go with the rose-colored nostalgia viewpoint of how we would appreciate it now, because there's definitely some things that wouldn't pass muster, I believe, with appropriateness as far as the way women are treated, etc. So
yeah, I will say I had a problem with that as I was trying to watch it and be objective this time around.
Yeah,
it must be the 50th time or something that I've seen it, and as I was watching it this time with that critical eye, I was like, do you know what? Yeah, that is really, it's iffy and it's a little bit uncomfortable. But then I kind of, whether it's true or not, I kind of convinced myself it's not played as if this is admirable behavior. It's played for the kind of satire, the comedy of it, of get a load of these dickhead men that think they've got something that women want, kind of thing. It's not like, and yeah, there's some horrible sort of insinuations and hints, but thankfully they don't really come to much in the end. And like I said, at the end of the day, the people that are doing the kind of the more sexist behaviors, I think, are at least the bad guys, you know, for the most part, and are at least taught their lesson at the end. And the women are very, you know, they beat them ultimately. You know, they're smarter, they're stronger, and it's kind of, for a film in 1980, that is vaguely revolutionary. And again, I know you guys haven't seen the original sort of 30s and 40s serials or the original comic books, which are very much like, you know, this woman in a barely there dress just screams, Flash, save me, and then gets rescued and immediately falls into bed with him. So the source material wasn't the best feminist sort of thing anyway, you know. But,
Well, I mean, we might as well go straight into it. I mean, you know, the writing. So, you know, do you guys have any thoughts on the writing itself of the movie?
Oh, so many. Again, I'll let Rune go first because I'll be here all day.
No, you go ahead. Let me marinate in this one for a few minutes.
Let's see. I've tried to make notes as they went on, so I've just said that, like, to me, it is obvious that they know, like, that they know that they're not making a serious movie, but they are taking the acting part of it seriously. But even then, you can kind of tell they're having fun with it because, like, I remembered, for example, Topol being quite serious in this film, and there are moments that he is, but as I was rewatching it this time, I always forget that, like, he has some of the funniest early lines. So he plays it like, oh, we're in threat. What are we going to do? And then you also get him giving, come on, what are you scared? As he pulls a gun on the guy. Like, what are you scared of? What's going on? And, grab your toothbrush and whatever. Come in with me. And I'm like, all right. Okay. You know what you're playing here. Fair enough. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets some really cool actual deep lines later on about, like, the resisting the brainwashing and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think it and that's the film in a kind of a nutshell, is that it toes that line between, it can occasionally get a little bit, not super deep, but a little bit more thoughtful. And then there's times when it's just like, let's just have a laugh.
Yeah. It's a bizarre script. It's kind of all over the place. But that Hodges not only directed it, but managed to keep a handle on it, something else. Because weirdly enough, when he did work on pretty much an exclusive comedy script, when he did Morons from Outer Space later on, he worked nowhere near as well as this. Kind of, you know, as you were saying with Blessed, it kind of feels like lightning in a bottle. It just works.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think part of that is that the people, like, you get people like Brian Blessed who are taking it seriously and wanted to always play this part. And, you know, he's a Shakespearean actor. It's not that he can't act. So he is, like, playing Vultan with all the gravitas that you would give, you know. He says himself, Branagh's Henry V is right. It's the perfect version. This is our perfect Flash Gordon. So, you know, he's playing it as he exactly would. He's not playing it for laughs or for camp or whatever. He's just enjoying it. So, yeah. And I think it's not necessarily writing, but I did want to mention something that one of the production designers say in one of the documentaries, which is that they say, what we're making, we didn't expect you to believe, but we did want you to enjoy. And I think that's, like, one of the key things of this film. Like, it's not super believable, let's be honest. There are times when I've referred to this as the world's biggest budget school play, but at the same time, it's so enjoyable just to watch. And if you can suspend that disbelief and you're not like, well, that's fake, that's rubbish, that doesn't look right, you know, whatever, just have fun with it.
Yeah. I mean, to be in fairness, we grew up with classic Doctor Who, so we were kind of conditioned for this kind of thing in a way.
Yeah.
And when you look at the science in the script, it's laughable. It's laughable. But you don't even care.
Yeah.
That's the source material's fault, because this is a, you know, 1930s, 40s comic strip where it was all, drop the lightning shield, take the rocket ship from Venus to Mars, and here comes the Spider Woman of Mercury or whatever. So it's like, it's not gonna be serious, because the source material was high fantasy, and it was before people knew or cared about real science or anything. It was just pure escapism.
Yeah. It feels like they stayed very true to the material, which high praise for that then, you know? So, and I appreciate that the actors, like, took their job seriously and played it straight, and I think that makes them more funny because they are committed to the role and the reality that they're trying to portray. So, but yeah. I think it's like overall like really a fun script to
it kind of moves along at a brisk pace as well.
Yeah, you're never bored. You're never bored.
Within the first 20 minutes, you're introduced to the protagonist, the situation's explained, and they're in space.
I said the exact same thing. I said when it comes to the start of the movie, you just want them to hurry up and get to space, and they do. Whereas a lesser movie would be like, oh, we've got to spend this exposition time and we've got to do this and really set up the characters. And it's just like, no, the film is like, look, here's Zarkov, here's Flash and Dale. Ming's healing bad weather on us. We're in space. There you go. Yeah. We got there as quick as we could, you know.
I can't help but think if it were made today, they'd be splitting it into 2 parts because there's just so much going on.
Yeah.
There'd be a solid hour spent on Earth giving you all of the backstory and the importance and the bad weather conditions. How can we deal with it? And it's just like, no, we're not making flipping Interstellar here, you know.
It would be a completely different deal this time to do it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, nowadays they would definitely try to make this like a trilogy or something.
Yeah.
I dread them eventually remaking it, although there is apparently the current talk is that Taika Waititi is close to doing a deal to make a film version, so at least that's a good marriage, I think, of filmmaker with material.
Yeah. I'd be okay with that.
I mean, it's also littered with, kind of iconic lines, but obviously they weren't as iconic on the page, and it's very much down to the delivery in a lot of the places.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't talked about it, but we kind of did, do our version of it. But what an intro. The fact that it just leaps straight into you with Clytus on board. There's this planet called Earth. And it's just, it gets you going with the fact that that's an already great scene that then goes straight into that Queen soundtrack. And it's just like, this is exciting already.
Yeah. They don't try and play it for a mystery. They don't try and draw it out. It's a classic case of showing and not just telling. And I think it really can. And when that intro hits, it does get your blood pumping.
It does, absolutely, yeah. I made a note of this because, again, it's from the documentary, which I didn't realize because I'm not all that familiar with the source material. I vaguely know it. But apparently in the original stories, Flash is a polo player. And I love the fact that they were like, we're making this movie for American audiences. Of course, he's a quarterback.
Oh my God.
I mean? What a weird change to me. But then so many people that are interviewed about the movie were asked their favorite scene, and they said it was the football fight scene.
Right.
And I'm like, exactly. And that came from, that's got nothing to do with the source. That's just them riffing. And it does. It's really funny.
Yeah. I think the performance is silly. I mean, have you got any other notes on the writing? Because I think a lot of this movie's straight down to the performances from the various players.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few that I could go through if you want. First of all,
go for it.
I again, you're either going to love this or hate this, but I love that it sets up straight away that Ming is just basically, he's pantomime irredeemable cruel when he's like, you're loyal to us even though you're starving, are you? Okay, just drop on your own sword then.
Yeah.
This has got all the subtlety of a sledgehammer to the face, you know what I mean? But yeah, we get it. You're a dick.
Chaotic evil.
The fact that, again, if you're not sure what kind of film you've got here, he then immediately mind controls Dale into basically a softcore porn star.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, am I watching Flash Gordon or Flesh Gordon at this point? What's going on?
Yeah,
and all of the stuff which apparently Peter Wingard loved playing, all of the stuff with like Clytus lusting after Aura, comparing like, oh, if only it was your daughter that was doing this. Oh, yes. Oh, she loves a bit of torture. And he goes into detail, Peter Wingard, about how he was sniffing this hanky thing that belonged to the princess. Like, and almost like, I'm going to get you. It's like, dude, what the heck is this you're doing? But, go for it. Why not? But yeah, I mean, I've mentioned the funny kind of swear words that we didn't know about. Just some of the lines I think I've written down. Tears are a sign of their weakness, which as soon as that line came up, even the first time I saw it, I was like, well, that's going to be a callback later. She's going to cry and be like, see, I'm suddenly much more human now.
Right, yeah.
Again,
my heart hadn't changed.
Exactly. I couldn't do this. Again, not the most subtle thing, but the fact that when the bad guys are watching Zarkov's memories and see Hitler. And they're like, oh no, he showed promise.
He showed
Oh
promise.
gosh, yeah.
For God's sake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, come on.
Oof.
Oh, and then related to what I was saying about like there's some really uncomfortable sexism, but the way that they kind of frame it is almost satirical. So when they say, when Flash is talking to Dale and then says, don't do anything, just take him out. Girls know how. It's been done to me a few times.
Right.
I'm like, Flash, what the heck have you been up to? Just constantly got head trauma from being knocked out by girls he's hitting on at parties or something.
Oh, some of it was just
and I love the sheer like the fact that they kept in when he's mind controlling and she's all over him and he's this girl is really turning me off.
What was that?
Sorry, Dale, I didn't mean like,
not you.
What am I watching?
That's so uncomfortable. It's just very uncomfortable to watch.
It is, but you have to laugh. You've just got to go like, what? What just happened?
Like, really? And then they're engaged later, like.
Like I said, nothing is subtle in this movie. It's like if it can see a thing, it's gonna see it. It's not gonna care. So yeah, I love that. On the complete flip side of that, when it got to Arborea later on and it's talking about that initiation ritual, I was like, is this a riff on Dune? Are they trying to do like serious sci-fi for a second here? Am I misremembering? I know there's something like that in Dune, right? Where he's got to like withstand the pain for so long or whatever to be.
That's the box. It wasn't as camp as this.
No, it wasn't as camp, but it's a similar idea of like to be initiated, you've got to, in this case, you can't actually be hit or whatever or feel the pain, but it's a similar idea of like stick your hand in this hole for as long as you can and then you'll be a man, I guess.
It's another one of those problems though. At that point, my mother walked past the room and it's got that where it's got all the tree men going,
Okay, thank you for saying something about this.
Yeah, and I just thought, this does not sound right.
I don't even notice that.
Oh man, what kind of movies do you watch where you're so inured to this kind of thing?
Clearly, I was just indoctrinated or something. Oh no, I am everything the right hates. Oh my god. Oh no. No, I was focusing too much on that and the fact that every time this scene comes up, I'm like, this is an 80s, 90s British TV dream team. It's like Crystal Maze and Blue Peter over there on the bloody screen. And then James Bond walks in. Like, what is going on here?
I think it's a really good scene, but the audio kind of takes me out of it a bit because what is on screen and what is heard do come across as two different things.
On that note, again, another great line that you kind of have to laugh at. Some people might not like it. I knew you were up to something, but I confess I hadn't thought of necrophilia. Everything Splash is dead. Like, what? I watched this as a kid. I had no idea what the fuck necrophilia was.
When we watched it this time, I just thought, how the fuck did I take that line in as a kid?
I'm telling you, in the 80s, they didn't care.
And then I've just got the fact that you then cut to like the obvious dominatrix woman whipping Aura, and then there's such a perfect DK. You'll appreciate. There's a perfect classic Doctor Who moment where they go fetch the ball worms, and she goes, "Oh no, not the ball worms." That's a Doctor Who audition right there. No, not the mind probe. Oh.
And then Carla going, "We don't like this at all."
That's so great.
I'm just going to end up resorting into quotes. So yeah, I do like that. It's a classic kind of coming together plot, and there's good world building, and it's all from the source. Mm. So you can see that. But like I said, you've also got, thanks for giving a dumb old bird a second chance, and then the girls have a cat fight because of course they do. Tell me more about this man Houdini when they're chained up.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's little fun moments like that. And then again, a similar one when they're all talking about how they've changed, and then Zarkov figures something out and goes, I haven't changed.
I love that line.
I mentioned the UDK that I was in it, but I was trying to be as objective as I could. So I already mentioned to you, I was like, why would the Hawkmen who can fly have hover cycles?
Right.
I don't care.
You just think, your head kind of goes, I want to enjoy this. I'm just going to make up some random shit that I'll believe so I can keep enjoying it.
But there was another similar moment later on which caught me off guard for a second, and I was like, Mongo's wedding march just happens to be identical to Earth's.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, never mind. They just heard it on the radio or something.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Fine. It's fine. I noticed a similar thing when they were like in the intro, they do the voiceover and they're like, oh, this is Earth, and they're talking about it, and then they show all the buttons for all the weird, like all the weather things that they can do, and one of them is an earthquake. Like, probably wouldn't call it that on another planet.
I never actually picked up on that.
I picked up on that because it's a small body they call Earth, and then one of the buttons says earthquake. It's like, well, that was very convenient, wasn't it?
Right?
Not to mention the fact that all these buttons are written in English.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But that's sci-fi. You have to kind of go with it.
You really
Yeah. The other thing I said, I've completely forgot in terms of other things that were always cut out on the TV version. When they ripped the imager or whatever off the guy who has the over his eyes, and there's wires popping out of his eyes and stuff. Another one of those moments where I was like, "What is this movie?" Which I'd never seen until DVD.
Was that cut out then?
It was never shown on TV because these things would always be considered too much. So it would cut away from you'd see them heading towards the guy, and then it would just cut to the next seat. I had no idea that. It probably did show this, but I just wasn't focusing. So I had no idea that Carla full on melts Wicked Witch style in the corner of the room. I'm like, all right.
It makes me want to know what version the Queen would watch then.
Probably the one on TV.
She'll be full into the necrophilia shit.
Oh yes, chop off his head.
Yeah. Freeze, you bloody bastards.
Mother, what are we going to watch today? Can we watch something serious? Can we watch The Sound of Music? Yes, we can. Haha, no, this Flash Gordon. No, you lying bitch.
Oh my.
Anyway, now that we've officially gotten ourselves off the New Year's on our list.
Yeah, because that was a strong possibility, mate.
Again, it's become iconic, but that ending with Ming basically sucking himself into his ring, and then he's still alive. We're gonna make a sequel, and the very abrupt happy ending, which it's on the documentary, but you told me this beforehand, where they just improvised what was going to happen because they didn't have a clue. So Sam Jones came up with the idea of just giving it the whole jumping up and cheering. So I love that. Yeah. That's just improvised because it's such a cool moment as well. And again, last funny line. We're gonna have to try and find a way home unless you want to stay. No, I'm a New York City girl. It's a little too quiet around here for me.
New York in the 80s was bad, but
yeah, man, you were always getting mugged by people dressed as hawks.
Right? Maybe.
Oh, I love it. You have to not take it seriously and just go with the flow, really. But yeah, that's all my notes on writing now that I've bored the audience to death.
No, that's not boring at all, mate. So, we've already brought it up, but let's get into the performances. Sam Jones, what's your opinion? And silence.
I'm in two minds now that I've watched the documentary because a lot of people praise this performance and say the dubbing over hurt because it doesn't always mesh with the performance that's being given. And I'll confess I had no idea he was dubbed over until very recently. So they obviously did quite a good job. I watched this, like I said, all the time as a kid. I had no clue that wasn't just Sam J. Jones's voice.
Hang on a second, it wasn't?
No, he's dubbed over.
Wow.
That's what I mean. He basically went home for Christmas on 78, 79, whenever they were filming, and never got called back to come and do the dubbing because Televentus was like, I've had enough of this jerk. Let's just call somebody that I know that can do the voiceover work.
The voice was the guy from Event Horizon.
Oh, Sam Neill?
Oh.
No, he was the one that kept referring to Latin. He kept reverting to Latin at the start, and he was the one that went to find that used the drive in the first place, and then he's on the video.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Well done.
I mean, in terms of the performance, I think it's not got to be very much, and it is perfect stereotypical all-American cheesy hero because that's what's required of him. So
yeah.
I like that at the start when the movie opens up, he seems incredibly optimistic. He's almost kind of childlike in this innocence, and I loved that. As a kid, when you're watching that, you identify with him more than you would have, say, with even people like Luke Skywalker. Skywalker seems jaded in comparison to this guy.
A lot of people on the doc say that as well, that the part of the joy of it is that you can relate to him because he doesn't have superpowers. He's just a, fair enough athletic, but he's otherwise a regular dude.
Yeah.
And the joy of it is that this like ordinary humdrum person in extraordinary circumstances and then still becomes a hero. So as you say, you're looking at it like, oh wow, if Flash Gordon can do it, maybe I can save the world or whatever,
Yeah.
He's what you as a kid, he's what you imagine being a hero would be like. And for that, on that performance level, I cannot fault him.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Like I said, he's got to be an archetype, and you can't fault him for being that because that's exactly the point.
Right. Yeah, that's how it's written.
And then you come to, Melanie Anderson, again, she does play to the old style pulp comic heroine. I mean, I've not read the strips, as you say, so, partial media aside, she's a regressive vision at times, and some of the lines are so over the top, it's unreal that, the Flash, I love you, but she does get this agency to a character, more so, in my opinion, a lot of the times than Flash. She takes matters into her own hands when escaping. She tries to rally Voltan to the cause. She doesn't just sit around waiting for Flash a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's weird because
distress.
I think I would say she is a bit too damsel in distress for my tastes, but part of that I think is that Melody Anderson seems like the only person that's not having fun, if you know what I mean. Like they all play it straight, but she's playing it super serious and not realizing sometimes that she's saying and doing really ridiculous things. And I don't know if that's just because she was like stressed out on set and just like, I'm going to give my best performance or I'm going to get shouted at or whatever else. But I was like, the majority of what I get from her isn't so much knowingly kicking ass. It's more sort of like, Flash, save me, or not really much else to her. I mean, in this film, fair enough.
Every time she delivered the line "Go Flash," it made me laugh, and I do not know why.
She's imitating a cheerleader because, of course, that's the only thing a woman can be in relation to a football star is a bloody cheerleader,
Exactly.
But that's the thing.
It's like went on to quality stuff like Manimal.
But again, it's really like a lot of the character. I know it seems silly to say it about this film, but a lot of the characters have growth that you can track. And she goes from like dumb cheerleader needing Flash to save her to inexplicably at the end of the film just being a gun-toting ninja doing cartwheels and shooting people. I'm like, where's this coming from?
From the person on the airplane at the beginning who's like, oh no, and then it's like, what is this?
Exactly, yeah.
So,
well, I've given you my thoughts on Sam and Melody. Topple's a strange one. I mean, he's a fantastic actor. Obviously, from things like Fiddler on the Roof straight through to being pretty much one of the only good things about For Your Eyes Only. But in this, I just get the impression he read the script and just thought, this shit's just going to be fun, and set out to be as tongue-in-cheek as possible. I love the Agent Zarkov routine shit that he does, where he keeps making, come, follow me, dear. Not because of the script as such, but just because of his delivery. That you mentioned it before, that speech to Dale about his conditioning and the Beatles song. And again, that scene, I haven't changed. He just looks like he had just fun making this. And I get the feeling when he went back to his lodgings at the end of the day, he'd be on the phone to his significant other saying, you would not believe the shit I'm getting paid for to do it.
Well, it's funny you say that because I'm going to sound so pompous. But again, in the documentary, they interview Topol and he's talking about how like he used, I don't know if it was from this film, but he used a lot of his, Hollywood money to open like a refuge for various people like escaping persecution in Israel. And it's like, it's for anyone, any kind of social status, from the poor to the rich, any religion or whatever. It's basically just a safe haven. And you can see he's genuinely like, that's the thing I'm most proud of in my life. And part of me is like, if you're acting in films like this, is part of you just have fun with it and think about how utterly nice it's going to feel to do a good thing with the money that you're getting to like you said, just I'm getting paid for this shit. So why not?
Yeah.
Zarkov was my favorite, like, as far as all the characters. He was, I don't know.
I always loved him as well.
Genuine, yeah, there wasn't a moment where I felt like weirded out by his lines or his performance or anything that he was doing. Like, I felt like he was like pretty like on target for like being an actual good human the whole time.
I think it's I would agree, but I would say it starts off very off-putting when he's pulling the gun on the guy, and he clearly seems like he's more stereotypical mad scientist. But the fact that it just that is basically ignored as soon as you get into space. He's like, I was right, and now I'm perfectly normal.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that earlier today, and I was like, well, if you look at it, it's basically like he understands that the world is under attack, and sacrificing this one guy might be better than the entire Earth. Is probably the mentality behind that, which, you know, can be commendable, I guess.
Yeah, but no, I always liked Zarkov because for the majority of the film, he is like, I can't relate to Flash because that's effort, whereas Zarkov is the kind of hero that I'm like, I could be that guy. I could just sit there and be like, let's think of good things, let's think of the human spirit, and let's just be intelligent enough to stay out of shit's way for the most part.
Yeah. Achievable.
Right, brings us to Max von Sydow. What's your thoughts?
I literally have 4 words under my notes for Max von Sydow. Gravitas meets scenery chewing. That's all I've written, and I was like, I don't need to say much more than that.
I mean, the character itself, it's very problematic.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's part of the legacy of what this thing is, and the fact that everything in that era was, Sax Roma, Fu Manchu, and then you have the cartoons that inexplicably turn every Oriental villain green for no given reason, from the Mandarin in Iron Man to Ming in Defenders of the Earth, and you're just like, what is going on here?
That you touched upon something there, because, mentioning Iron Man, it said there's some roles that you can't imagine anyone else playing, like Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. For me, after seeing this, nobody could be anywhere near as good as Max at playing this role.
Definitely. And nobody, I think, could come off without looking super offensive, whereas he, for some reason, he just doesn't. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's not fair to say, from my point of view, I'm not offended because why would I be? But for me, he doesn't seem like he's overplaying it to, like I said, the point of offensiveness. And like, what do you look like? What are you doing? There's enough performance there that you don't necessarily focus on that, whereas anybody, as you said, in that costume giving that performance now would, you'd be just like, ooh, you've been cancelled.
You cannot fault his performance, and he is a panto villain, right down to wanting to boo and hiss when he's on screen.
Yeah. And I do love a good over-the-top character, which he played magnificently.
Oh, yeah. He just takes some of the worst material and he elevates it.
Oh, yeah.
He's obviously so into what is going on in his daughter's life and these numerous kind of liaisons that she's having with various characters, and it's more than healthy.
Yeah, it feels like there's like a sexual tension between the two of them that is not appropriate.
There's a lot of that coming from Ornella Mutti, though. It's like, again, I'm trying to make as succinct notes as I can, and I'm just like, this is a porn performance. It just is. Like, everybody else is playing it as best they can, playing it straight, a hint of campery. She's just giving a performance out of a softcore porn, and there's nothing else to it. And it's just like, it feels so wrong every time she's on screen, because part of me is like, ooh, that's a heck of a costume. Oh, wow, this is... And then it's just like, it's all right, calm down. Jeez, I watched this with my parents. What the fuck was going on?
Yeah, I remember watching this with my parents, but I cannot remember how, if I'd have sat watching it now with my parents, I'm a grown man, I'd be embarrassed as shit. I'd be like, as a kid, I'm just sat there, legs swinging on the end of the couch, going, this is great.
Yeah, and again, it's like you were saying about the necrophilia line. I was like, how did I used to just either not care or not respond to the whole, this chick is really turning me on? Like, what did I think that was about when I was a kid,
Yeah.
We're probably going around the playground back then calling people a necrophiliac and having no idea what it meant.
Oh, no. That would be a call
this
home to your
chick is
parents
turning
now.
me on.
Yeah, there's a wonder. Yeah, I'm wondering why I didn't do that work great at school.
But yeah, I mean, she's not just a femme fatale. She is beyond stereotypical. And like I said, it's like Yeah,
But-
I
but
know
it-
she's a
again-
serious actress,
But again, it's taken to such an extreme that she comes across as such a badass that when she finally kind of takes that hero turn and stabs the guard in the elevator, you kind of breathe a sigh of relief and punch the air because she's finally on our side. And at that point, you're thinking, oh, Aura's joined in now. This thing will be over presently.
I never see her as a badass though, because like I said, it just feels like she's only there to be a random porn star. And like you said, it's every scene she's in is uncomfortable, whether it's the hint of incest or the hint of, like I said, the BDSM type relationship she might end up having with Clytus and the other woman whose name I forget. And it's just kind of like you just get the sense that she's got no life outside of like leather and whips when she's not on screen. And I'm like, what is this woman? What is she doing?
You get the impression that they were just trying to say this woman is basically sleeping with everybody.
Yeah,
and it is very problematic. Again, oh God.
Yeah.
It is kind of implying though that all the women on this planet or this universe, whatever, are basically sluts. Because I do remember as a kid being deeply confused and having the line stick in my mind of like when Dale comes back in and Flash is like, "Oh, you look amazing," and she goes, "Oh, it's just the way they do the eye makeup here. I hope I can remember it when I get home." But I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? This is a 6-year-old boy watching this going, what? All right.
And why is that even the topic of conversation at that particular moment?
Exactly, yeah.
Like, dude's like chained up in a dungeon about to die.
Exactly, yeah.
Great.
Just a blessing.
Okay.
Because, I mean, he's a noted Shakespearean actor, but he took this and he went like kind of full Spinal Tap and turned it all the way up to 11.
It was great.
Yeah.
I love it though.
Fantastic.
Because especially when you know that he actually, like, he's not just doing this because he took a look at it and was like, let's be ridiculous. He is playing this with all the passion of himself as a 10-year-old boy playing in the playground. And when you know that and you watch it, you're like, yep, you're having the time of your life.
He obviously had fun making it. And obviously he looks back on it with fondness, having made Gordon's Alive one of his own, personal catchphrases.
It's the tagline to the documentary I keep talking about.
Oh, God. Are you sure you're not on commission?
I swear I'm not.
Let's be honest. He elevated scenery chewing in this to a freaking art form.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like that anyway. Like, he is a beautifully big actor. Like, one of my mum's all-time favorite things that she watches constantly is I, Claudius, the old 70s British miniseries. And he's like that in that. And that is deathly serious. I mean, some horrible things happening, full-on drama. Everybody's giving it their best, full-on Shakespeare, gravitas. And Brian Blessed is just Brian Blessed because he just plays big all the time. He's great.
Yeah, he did project a lot. But I think especially this, gave him license to just be Brian Blessed. Yeah. And now everywhere he goes, he is Brian Blessed. And everybody expects that line from him. But
he loves it. He loves giving that line. He offers it up to people. And as you said, it's weird that you watch interviews and stuff and you're like, do you know what? Compared to what you're like in real life, this performance is positively restrained.
Yeah. Did you ever see when he hosted Have I Got News for You?
I did, yeah.
Oh, my God. I've never laughed as much in my life. Which now brings us to Timothy Dalton. And I've got to say, I love this guy. He's honest. To me, everyone else is acting like they're in panto, and he's delivering lines as though he's on stage with the RSC.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of feels like he's the straight man of the production.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I can't tell if he could tell at this point. He's so out there. And when you're on screen with Richard O'Brien and you're the one that's out there, that's quite
Just picturing Timothy Dalton saying, "Come with me to the Crystal Dome."
Yeah.
Oh my!
You bloody bastards!
Yeah. Oh God! The bloody bastards line is the best line in the film. Just the way it's delivered. It's how I imagine an 8-year-old would swear for his first swear, thinking he's extremely serious, and he walks into a room and says that, and everyone would turn around and go, and just point and laugh. And done here for one of the heroes, and everyone just takes it so seriously, and it just it's so absurd.
It's so weird though, because again, you can't define whether it's just like Timothy Dalton thinking, let's just have fun, or if he's been told like improvise something really badass and he thinks that is his idea of like, oh, I'm gonna say freezably bastards, it'll shock everyone, and instead the response is just to piss yourself laughing at him.
I mean, you can kind of get away with the lying bitch. You can kind of get away with the bastard.
The necrophilia line's a step too far. Like,
you playing your bloody pipes, fool. But when he runs into that, and there's that like scene after where he picks up that gun off the turret, and then just to be extremely badass, kicks over the turret,
and then whips the gun like over his shoulder and everything. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I love that guy. What do you think?
I've said it all. let's hear from Rune.
No, I thought his performance was really good. It's so very straight compared to everything else, and it's hilarious. It just makes it that much more funny, I think.
When you think that this was literally like what 6 or 7 years before the man was cast as James Bond, and off the back of this, you're just thinking, what did they?
Yeah, how did he end up in that role after this?
You watch this and then watch The Living Daylights, and they really are night and bloody day.
Yeah,
that's the same guy, is it? All right.
But you are watching it, and you're just thinking, does he know? Everybody else, does he know how he is? Do you think they sit around at the Daltons on Christmas and say, let's put Tim on, let's have a laugh?
I think he knows now, because if you watch his performances in things like Hot Fuzz, for example, I think he's able to play up to that idea now and his own like gravitas, over the topness or whatever else. And he does the comedy thing quite well. I don't know. I think it was very early in his career, and I think, like you said, he was basically just like, I'm going to try and give the best performance I can, and nobody was there to be like, maybe just.
Yeah, it's like nobody tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Look, Tim, this is a piss take."
Yeah. Yeah. Or just like, just have somebody on set to just tap him on the shoulder and be like, Tim, just pitch it like 30% lower.
Have fun. Look at Brian. Brian's over there. We're getting on to like the minor players now, but when you look at them, it's like a who's who of British /
or a who's that in often
cult actors. I mean, you've got Peter Wingard, Richard O'Brien. You've got John Hallam, Susan Danielle,
Deep Roy.
Yeah, Deep Roy, Kenny Baker, William Hootkins, fucking Robbie Coltrane.
Yeah. I told you he's not on screen, but he was responsible for doing some of the previs for the Hawkmen. Was John Altman, Nasty Nick out of EastEnders.
Yeah.
Mad.
And this is the thing, you didn't pick up on it because you're not as probably sad as I am, but the surgeon turned out to be Howard from Ever Decreasing Circles, which is like,
I don't even know what that is.
You've got Peter Duncan, who's like a kid for the purpose of Rune. He was a kids' TV presenter.
Oh.
Duncan Dares, Blue Peter.
Yeah, he did a TV show called Duncan Dares, where he would go out and like do adventuring things. Like, didn't he? I don't know. Didn't he slide down a zip line from the top of Blackpool Tower?
All kinds of stuff. Oh, I have to tell you, I forgot completely to tell you this story as well about the film. When they're interviewing Peter Duncan, he's at a convention and he says that like he didn't have that big of a part, but he walked past. He saw Timothy Dalton in like Waitrose or something one day. Apparently, walked up to him and just went, "Hey Tim, you killed me in Flash Gordon." And he says Timothy Dalton gave me the most evil, grimacing stare and just walked away.
I guess Tim had realised by this point in his career. It was at that moment.
Wow.
It was just then that I realised I murdered a Blue Pea presenter. That really.
But I do love the fact that it was pointed out earlier today that it were Duncan Dares, when he'd get into dangerous situations, and here he is sticking his arm in a log to try and get stung by this inflatable scorpion. Have Have you guys got any other notes on the acting?
Oh, just a very small couple. I said Peter Wingard I was always amazed by because, again, because of growing up with my dad, who was very kind of man's man, I knew Peter Wingard as Jason King, the kind of suave super spy type. So finding out that he was, because obviously you've got no idea who's behind that mask, finding out it was him, and as you said, the sexy voice bastard.
Oh, God.
I was like,
that voice. Whoa.
Yeah, he's projecting very well through that mask. But then I was just like, as I was contemplating that character, I'm just thinking, is he supposed to be scarred? Because it looks like there's some scarring, like when you can see the flesh under the eyes. And I'm like, is he a Doctor Doom reference, or does he exist in the old Flash Gordon comics? Or is it a little bit wrong, kind of thing?
From what I can gather, he never existed in the comics, and he was created just for the movie.
Huh.
Yeah. The only other note I had was on Mariangelo Malata, who sadly has passed away, who played Carla. I just said that, like, again, you kind of look at how everybody's playing their performance, and she's perfect because she's deadpan, and that's exactly what that required. And again, this was my first exposure to the film, was like hearing her deliver the deadpan lines about like open fire, full disruptors, dispatch War Rocket Ajax to bring us his body. I'm just like, what is this? This is fascinating to me because it's my first exposure to fully deadpan acting. You know,
we are going to empty your mind as if we would empty your pockets.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Level 6.
Yes.
She was a great hard hand kind of a person.
I mean, it's a thankless role and it's a very minor, number 10 on the call sheet, but it's still so well played. It's kind of, you've got to do it to keep that idea alive. And I just, like I said, the fact that she's in the pivotal kind of climax of the film, the way that Flash is ramming the lightning shield and everything, and she's the one that has to be, you will never get through. No, bugger, yes.
She reminds me a bit of the Fraulein character from Austin Powers.
That character is clearly based on Rosa Klebb, but that's
just saying.
Come to embrace the love that dare not speak its name, Emperor. Me and your daughter.
Oh my, we've opened a whole thing.
I awakened my desires as I was whipping her. Turns out.
Oh. What kind of dark fantasies do you have?
You don't want to know.
We'll move on to the direction then. What do you guys think of Hodges' directing?
I think it was well directed. Sure. Because the like you have this like these couple of cast members that are playing things like just so straight or deadpan as and then these other ones that are just like, we're gonna have a good day, we're gonna have fun, and they just kind of let that meld into each other. Nice.
Yeah. It's weird because, like, as you're saying, I don't think he's necessarily a performance kind of director. You do kind of get the sense he's like, let's just get to the end of this day of bloody filming and get something in the can and do what you want.
I'm amazed how it came together to go from Get Carter and then end up in this madness. It's
but it's weird when you learn that, like, he's, as the director, obviously he's doing the technical things, so like he is responsible for the way that the sky looks, because it is like a really cool idea of they dropped different colored liquids into water and then just left them a day to kind of melt together, and that's such a cool idea. Or like the fact that they used inflatable bike pump type things for the spikes, so it was safe during the fight where Clytus gets killed, and like these are the things he would have had to think about on top of like whether or not Timothy Dalton's playing it a bit too far, So you got to admire him for that. And the fact that, like I said, it's not necessarily him, it's the production design, but the way that it just looks bright and colorful, and it captures that childlike imagination that you imagine a story like this should. Pure escapist comic book, whatever you want to call it, fantasy,
Yeah.
It's dreamlike almost, I guess.
Yeah.
I do like how there's some shots that seem like they come straight out of the kind of 50s pulp sci-fi type things, like when it cuts to Zarkov's greenhouse at the start. And later on, when they land on Mongo and it cuts the outside of Ming's fortress, together with that music, it's really got that kind of. It does feel like a 50s pulp movie shot in the 80s to me.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
Like there's even things like you said, like the creature design is very 50s. So that the weird inflatable scorpion, or the Audrey 2 that eats the guy, hint hint, on the thing. And, yeah, I mean it's not to be taken. Like I said, it boils down to you're not supposed to believe it. You're just meant to enjoy it, because we're not fooling anybody that this is reality hero.
There are some really good shots in there, I think, though.
Oh yeah, I mean it looks gorgeous just for
I think
being colourful. And
my favorite shot in the film is that at the end, where you're looking outside into the war rocket and everything's on fire, and Flash is piloting it. I think that's a beautiful setup.
It's not a unique opinion, but I love what I currently have as my thumbnail thing, like on here, which is, again, maybe it's just because it captures that childlike dream type quality, but in those like gorgeous skies when you've got all of the Hawkmen flying and then Flash on the hover cycle, hero pose, leading the way on a flying car type thing. It's just really cool. This was the film that, like I said, probably this might be very responsible for my love of comic books and sci-fi and all the things that have come to really define me as a person. And imagery like that, I can probably point to as being a Rosetta Stone in my life of like, how cool is that? You're not going to see that in Howard's End. Yeah.
See, I love that tribute scene as well. When they've just walked down that corridor, they end up in it, and you almost empathize with them because you've got no idea what's going on, but you know it's not good.
Yeah.
Together that with the obviously the on the nose Nazi imagery that comes later on when you've got the troopers, in a single files, not single.
Oh yeah, I mean,
row stomping down
stormtroopers.
Stairs. Yeah, I think he's done a really good job.
I will say as well, at the risk of completely destroying Rune, that when it got to some of the torture things, I was like, this guy should have just directed 50 Shades of Flash.
Oh my God.
This is what we're making here at this point, isn't it, really?
Maybe
I think you rather enjoyed that.
Way of enjoying what he was doing.
There is so much coming to light about how your mind works, Mike. It's like I've known you for a couple of years now, and there's like little light bulbs going off every now and then, going, now it's becoming.
I told you,
clear.
man, it's this film. We've discovered a side piece in the jigsaw that is my life right now.
Jesus, this film is going to be used in the trial.
What trial?
Whatever it is, when it's there, it will be Exhibit A.
This is going to be pivotal to the Netflix documentary, isn't it? Oh dear Lord! No, seriously, I like the fun aspects. I'm over exaggerating some of the ridiculousness, but you can't ignore that it's very much got that edge. Like I said, of what is it? Why is it doing erotic Barbarella things?
It's obviously you've got your De Laurentiis vibe there because he did, Barbarella. But I do think, as far as the UK goes, its camp vibes allowed it to flourish. I mean, after all, we're the home of the cheeky Seaside Postcard and the Carry On series of movies.
Yeah, the Carry On films. This is Carry On in outer space quite a lot of the time, isn't it? Really? Yeah.
It is. It's laden with not so subtle innuendo at times, but cinema goers at that point in the UK were kind of used to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true. It does have that. Yeah, it's weird because I was talking to Rune about this when you weren't on air, and it's kind of like this feels like such a British movie, and yet it's not. I mean, it's got American stars, and you hear a lot of American people say how influential it was to them as a kid and stuff. But I've always thought of it as a British movie because, like I said, the sheer number of British actors they have, just because they filmed here, so it was easier. But you see Timothy Dalton, Richard O'Brien, Peter Duncan, and you just think, like I said, the tone of it is just so weirdly either high camp or satire that it's just, there's something peculiarly British about it to me.
Yeah, there is. And as I say, I think it stems from maybe us growing up with classic Doctor Who. It does sometimes have a very make do and mend approach. Yeah. I mean, when you look at the tribute scene at the start, it wants to be the cantina scene from Star Wars. but it's not. It's Doctor Who.
It's better.
Well, it is. To me, I think it's great. It's just a lot of people in just very extravagant clothing because that's as far as the budget would stretch. But because we've grown up with that kind of Doctor Who vibe, I think our brain automatically goes, "Oh, they're in a different clothing. Aliens, cool."
Anyway. Yeah, I always thought this film had. It always felt very Rocky Horror to me. Like,
yeah, it does actually.
It does. Which I mean, that is again that the whole British humor kind of a thing. So
yeah, you can almost picture them breaking into song on more than one occasion. Absolutely. I mean, they don't, but yeah.
Yeah. So when I watched it the first time a few months ago, I was like, this definitely like has this weird Rocky Horror vibe to it. And then Richard O'Brien popped up, and I'm like, wait a minute, no, who wrote this?
That's the one thing missing from this movie, and it's a criminal omission, is Tim Curry, because he would have fit in perfectly.
Oh, he would have been a brilliant Ming. He might have been a
yes, absolutely.
Yes. But yeah, no, you're right. Tim Curry should be in everything.
Legend.
Yeah.
Adore him.
I can't fault the production design on this.
Yeah.
Going on from the costumes and stuff, I just think it's absolutely beautiful to look at.
It is. It's extravagant and colorful, and
like I said, I've got the note down under like SFX production design. I've just said it's like as I've said, it's like the most lavish school play ever, and I don't care, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I will say, if you're a nitpicker for this kind of thing, the 4K restoration does finally remove things like the wires and stuff that you can see up to like that version. So if that does bother you, which it doesn't always for me, but it's good to know that that's done at least, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love that it brings out the vivid colors as well, and the fact that the comic book art was a cool touch. I mentioned already to you, DK, at the start. It was the first time before Sam Raimi's Spider-Man or whatever when it was like, this is based on a comic, so let's have the opening credits play over the actual comic book art by the original artists and stuff. You know, it's fantastic.
And like we were saying, you know, aside from Superman, this is pretty much the biggest comic book movie and one of the first comic book movies to come out. So I think it kind of set that tone, at least for a little while.
Definitely. And I know you compared it to classic Doctor Who, but I would say I didn't get into Doctor Who as much until I was a little bit older. But one thing I would compare this to is Jerry Anderson, because you look at the rocket ships and some of the performances, and this is very Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, you know. And I think that was probably what was appealing more to me as a kid, because, and let's be honest, some of the acting wouldn't enough to be. But yeah, I mean, like spaceship designs and the stuff, it's like it looks like models, and it looks silly if you want to look at it that way. But at the same time, as a kid, you're like, this is adults playing with their toys in the same way that I could.
You buy into it completely because, you know, you don't have that critical eye as such.
Exactly.
You suspend that disbelief so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
But but on the other side of that, I mean, when you see the planetscapes, they're gorgeous. They look like something out of a Franzetta painting, you know. It's like
the matte painting work on this is just amazing. And also
the Hawk floating palace. The Hawk's floating palace is gorgeous, man.
You can stretch that out to, say, you know, when they're being dragged into the portal at the start in the rocket, and they're using much more of the, you know, the inks in the water kind of thing, and it still looks stunning. Yeah,
it works. It does. It really does. Sometimes overly CGI, as people have, you know, it's not a unique opinion, but people have said for a while, oh, too much CGI can just hurt it, and sometimes the old ways do just look better, I think. But in terms of the production design, though, I will say one step too far. Why does Flash Gordon have the snazziest gravestone ever when they're planning on killing him?
I was thinking that, like, my God, they've even got his logo.
It's like they've full on rhinestones.
I mean,
you're like, definitely sponsored by the NFL at that point. I mean, it is kind of a comment as well. No matter how kind of loose it is kind of a comment on authoritarians decades before, say, like Jojo Rabbit came on the scene. So it's interesting to me that Taika Waititi considers himself a big fan of this.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you heard when I was talking, reading the Mike Hodges quote when he says in some of his more cheeky moments, he says that it's about US foreign policy. An American just barges in, F's everything up.
Yeah. I mean, you can't even say it treads a fine line, because for the majority of the runtime, it's just stamping all over it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the takeaway is, at the end of the day, as far as directing goes, no matter what you read into it, it's all valid. The only thing that it isn't, to me anyway, is boring. It's just fun from beginning to end. And I think the pacing is spot on.
It really is.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm under no delusions that it's great. And it's like, sometimes I'm, if I love a film or the way it is and I can see the artistry, I'm like, how can you not see that this is brilliant? Whereas this is a film where you could tell me that this is absolute trash and you wouldn't give it 1 star. And I'd be like, fair.
Yeah.
Even though I love it. You know what I mean?
I was the same when you said Buckaroo Banzai,
Yeah. But I didn't grow up with it. And if you don't have that connection, you just don't, But,
yeah. But you can love something and recognize it as not being great at the same time.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us to the FX and the model work, which to me, it occasionally, looking at it from this point, it looks a little hokey.
Yeah.
I already said my piece. It looks like Thunderbirds, which is perfect for me. So.
Yeah. But again, you're not 100% sure if they're deliberately going for that hokey 1930s, 1950s pulp sci-fi vibe and thinking it looks a bit fake. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah.
But then again, it's hard to imagine now and to place yourself in there. But in 1980, all of the stuff you were watching was a bit like that, because even the kids shows. I was watching stuff like Button Moon, which was the most like they just used a baked bean tin and a funnel to represent a spaceship, and then pulled it via a visible wire to a button, and you were like, "Wow, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen."
Did you ever see Captain Zepp?
I didn't know.
Oh God, the entire special effects budget on that was just a series of illustrations. You're thinking, I want to see the aliens. It came out, that's a drawing.
These aliens are 2-dimensional. Shush.
But we expected a lot less. But even back then, I can remember, you look at that War Rocket Ajax scene, and you just think, those are action men. When they're getting kicked off the wing and into space,
that's the charm for me, though. That's the thing. It's
that's the one
you
thing.
You can criticize that, but I just love it.
Yeah, that's the one thing that lets it down for me. Although when I was a kid, I did want those costumes for my action men.
Mate, you're a Transformers fan. You're used to watching half-hour toy adverts. Come on.
Yeah, the CGI, God, the effects are definitely super campy, but also like appropriate.
Yeah.
to the content.
I do wonder if when it was released there was like a series of kids toy merchandise where it was like, because again it was before I was born, so I didn't live to see if there were adverts that's like, now you can have your very own hover cycle, become Flash Gordon.
Oh no, trust me, I looked. I wanted the closest thing you could get. The closest thing you could get to Flash Gordon action figures was little cardboard stand-up characters on from packs of Weetabix.
Oh wow!
Somebody needs to get on that. Somebody needs to make models of War Rocket Ajax. I say models, I mean toys of War Rocket Ajax and the hover cycle.
Somebody appreciates that hover cycle.
I'm obsessed. Again, as a kid though, it's like it's the same way that all children are like, in the future we're all going to have jetpacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the
it does have far from perfect, CSO on occasion, but for the most part, it still looks good. And I know it sounds stupid. I still think those laser bolts look nice.
Yeah. Because they're tangible. CGI is just unreal. You know what I mean? It's just oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big practical effects person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think we're preaching to the choir probably by people listening to this podcast. But we've been talking
half an hour ago, mate.
We've been talking for
weird predilections.
We've been talking for so long now. Like I'm going to have to cut this probably right down, and we haven't really talked about Queen yet.
Well, we're getting there now. We're on to the sound design and the soundtrack. So
Okay.
go for it.
What can you say? It's Queen. It's legendary. It's what got me into the movie. It fits perfectly.
If you try and imagine the War Rocket Ajax fight without Queen or the football fight, they wouldn't work.
The intro, like you said, the way that pumping thing comes in right after I like to play with things. Ha 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 ha. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same.
It's so damn high energy. And yeah, I'm a Queen fan, so I would love it. But it's this that made me a Queen fan.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. That's cool.
I mean, it's extravagant. But and it is a lot of the time it's over the top, but I think it captures the tone of the movie perfectly. I mean, we spoke about it in an earlier episode, but people, by and large, think those 80s power soundtracks began with things like Top Gun and Rocky IV. But if you're going to be honest, as good as they were standing on the shoulders of giants. To me, this is where it began, and it's still one of the best soundtracks ever recorded. It's
very comparable in that way to, I know people may mock, but the most recent cult episode we did on Transformers the movie. Yeah, it's like that 80s rock soundtrack is doing quite a bit of heavy lifting at times as well. So yeah, this is another thing that you could describe as a rock opera almost, you know?
Yeah.
And, I love it. Yeah.
Well, like Rune mentioned, you almost at times expect them to break in a song.
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say it's not just Queen though, because Howard Blake doing the the actual score.
Yeah,
fantastic. And when you realize this is the guy who did the Snowman a few years later,
I know
it's like iconic, man. You know what I mean?
There's some really good bombastic pieces in there by Blake, and stamps it to me firmly in that. Again, I'm going back to that 50s pulp sci-fi thing. I mean, I'm one of those people that feel if the score isn't very good, then it can ruin the whole thing. Yeah. But he does a fantastic job.
Yeah, and it's a great example of many where I think you can listen to either the score or the soundtrack independently of the movie and enjoy them as their own thing without having to, I'm picturing the movie now because they're just that good.
Definitely. And if I think back to, as I was saying earlier, with regards to the single, we heard the single and we heard the dialogue on my part, especially, and we'd no idea, we got nothing to connect it to. And there is a tendency when you have stuff like that when you finally see the scene where that dialogue is contained, that it could be a disappointment. But the movie is so kind of out there and over the top and extravagant, it just blows away your own imagination anyway.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I had to live with my dad's performance of it over the top of anything that you could actually hear, so everything was going to be an improvement.
I feel like you have like comfort food, but British television is like comfort television.
Yeah,
I grew up on original Doctor Who too, and it was like a very big favorite thing for me, and so yeah.
But that's the thing though, is that I'm encouraged by hearing somebody like Taika Waititi might do it because he's not British, but he has that New Zealand kind of outsider sensibility. And if he applies the same kind of low budget but funny that you have in like What We Do in the Shadows, for example, but to a sci-fi context, like instead of horror, that could be something really special. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't let it end up going to like McG or Michael Bay or something that would ruin it. Let's have a voice to it.
He's got such an authentic love for what he does too. So it really shows through in his projects.
Mm-hmm.
Big What We Do in the Shadows fan.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, love it. Right, DK.
Yeah, I reckon we've pretty much covered, almost exhausted, every aspect of the movie at this point. Though, I know Mike could probably make this podcast another 3 hours long if we didn't get a rein on things. But we do have to move on. But before we do, anything else either one of you thinks is worthy of attention that we haven't discussed? Anything that you'd like to point out personally?
No, I've lost my voice from talking too much about this. People are just now listening to this going, I get the impression he likes this bloody movie. You know what I mean?
I feel like just listening to you love this so much, I have a better appreciation of it. So,
that's what we like.
And I feel like I really missed out on like y'all's childhood, like whatever is happening over there with this film. I feel like I've been denied that.
It's really not worth it just to enjoy this movie.
Yeah, we still have to live through Thatcher, so I won't.
Okay, fair.
Exactly. They stole our milk, but they did at least give us Flash Gordon to watch. I guess that was the trade-off.
Swings and roundabouts, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
No,
I had to live through Trump, so.
Oh God, yeah. Moving on.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got to say, I've loved the conversation that you've both brought today. What with the last episode on Transformers on this, I really do feel like a kid let loose in a toy store when I do these episodes. And consider
I hope audience enjoys it just as much as me.
Then you can take that to the bank, regard this is a good one. So, with that in mind, we'll take a look at our own personal selection of highlights with our favourite section. And by now, those who've been with us before know the drill. It's the part where we go around, give our favourite character, line, and scene from today's movie. And being the latest cult survivor, we'll go to you first, Rune. If you had to pick a favourite character from the movie, who would that be and why?
Favorite character was definitely Zarkov. I just felt like he was such a genuine character from top to bottom, and he never made me uncomfortable like Aurora or somebody. Like he was always a delight on screen, and I appreciated him. So yeah, Zarkov all the way.
Nice one. What about you, Mike? I know this is going to be a difficult one for you, but who's the standout?
Yeah. I share the opinion of Brian Blessed. I think it's Voltan because he has a bit of an arc. He starts off, you're not sure if he's on their side and then becomes the ultimate hero. I think it's a great performance. It's perfectly pitched for the film that it is. And yeah, by the end, he gets the kick-ass hero moments. And I defy any Brit who grew up with this to tell me that they didn't, at least at one point or another, scream in their living room, "Gordon's alive!" along with the screen when that line came up. So yeah, Voltan for me.
Nice one. For the reasons I've mentioned before, and as much as I love the enthusiasm shown by many in this cast, I'm going to have to go with Baron. I never thought I would say that. He's a moody son of a bitch, but for good reason. And it's just nice to see a kind of character redemption arc sort of played out. Plus, as I said, I just love the hell out of Timothy Dalton for his delivery in this.
Yeah, I can see that's the thing. I don't think there's a character that anybody could say that could pick that I would go, really? Like, everyone in this is going to be somebody's favorite because they're great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And right, favorite scene. What about your favorite scene? And again, we'll go with you, Rune.
Favorite scene. I'm gonna go with the battle it out scene between Baron and Flash on the tilty stage into the abyss.
That was my second choice.
It was my second choice as well. It was so close as well.
It was such an intense thing, and then all of a sudden you got spikes happening, and and Flash Gordon still helps him back.
Yeah,
I love that though. I love that hero moment of even though he's trying to kill you, it's like this is what humanity is, Baron. Save me.
Yeah, so yeah, that's fun. It reminds me of watching BattleBots.
What about you, Mike? What's your favorite?
My ultimate favorite, with that being a close second, would definitely be, as I've already alluded to, just because I love it, the Flash and the Hawkmen attacking. The War Rocket and the Lightning Shield and flying through the skies. And as a kid, this was, like I said, this might well be the defining moment where I was like, you know what my genre is going to be? Science fiction. Because I just want to watch shit like this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I can fully get on board with that. Again, it was the fight between Flash and Baron was a close second for me. But as much as it ends on a downer, I just love the football fight. It's completely absurd. And if it was, it would see so many people walk out of most movies. And
Flash, go!
Yeah. I think it's at this point, it clicks what this movie's about. And in that moment, you almost decide subconsciously that you're out or you're in. And I was just all the way in.
My favorite part in that scene was Voltan, on the sly helping out.
Yeah, just
helping Flash
smacking
out.
him at the back of the head.
Yeah, just
or tripping the guy.
that, and then the little person, the little tiny person that was poking him with a spear. That was great.
Yeah. Stick his sword in his ass, and then he gets stamped on his foot, and he's just giggling at the same time.
Math chaos. It was great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brilliant. So, favorite line, and again, over to you, Rune.
My favorite line was Voltan saying,
My thanks to you.
Yeah? What for?
Well, for giving a dumb old bird a second chance.
That's not my choice, but I just love that. I could pick so many. I've given you a load of the comedy gems throughout the discussion, but I have to go with
I can't imagine.
As I was going under, I started to recite Shakespeare, the Talmud, the formulas of Einstein, anything I could remember, even a song from the Beatles. It armored me, girl. They couldn't wipe those things away. You can't beat the human spirit.
He's a good little, and I love how he delivers that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just going to simply go with...
Freeze! The bloody bastards! Freeze!
And again, it's not the line itself, but just the way he delivers it. Right, so we'll get to our conclusions in a moment, but before that, as is
Lord, there's more.
yes, it never ends. We're going to the audience participation section. So, as always, a big thank you to everyone who took the time out of the day to give us their opinion. I know we say it often, but your participation really does make the show what it is. And we're always grateful to you folks out there for joining in. And we'll start with Sandy on our Discord. And she says, as a Gen X, I remember watching this movie unironically. It was original and fantastic, and it came on a lot of my grandmas on HBO. This and Clash of the Titans were some of the many movies coming out meant to fill the gaps between Star Wars and Superman. But Flash was just so extra and out there, taking the professional football player next door and thrusting me into the hero's role and some really outlandish and wild situations and characters which were all really unforgettable. I remember enjoying it as a kid, though, and I really feel the music was a big part of helping it reach its cult classic status. She also says, where is it? I was working at the time in a male-dominated field. This is talking about Flash, yeah, Mike?
I think so, yeah. Let's find out together.
Yeah. The movie just made me feel so powerful. I loved the music and everything. It made me feel like my only limits were in my own mind, and all I had to do was just want it. I had to be young again. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I'm certain I could recite every line still. So, let's not talk about that one. Adrienne from the Discord says, back in the Stone Age of cable TV, way early 80s, there was something on TV here in LA and we had it. This movie was on at the beginning. I remember seeing it and thinking it was costumey. Clash of the Titans was much more educational. Yes, I was quite judgmental as a kid. Later, the movies changed and lots became available, including the original Poltergeist. But I'll always remember our neighbour coming over to watch Flash Gordon. He couldn't believe we had it. Magdalena Art on, I believe it's Mastodon, says, hey, I saw this in the theatre. I recall my dad was not impressed. Stephen Sharp says, bit late to comment for the pod, but I agree it's one of my favourite films. I got the special edition for my uncle I got the special edition off my uncle for my 13th birthday. And then he's strangely posted a picture of the softcore porn parody Flesh Gordon, which I'm not sure.
Let's hope that wasn't what he got on his birthday.
That's an understanding family.
Wow.
Our very own Timeless Journey says, Gordon's alive. To be fair, I never saw the film before until I married a nerd, but Flash Gordon's grown on me over the years. It's classic sci-fi, almost like from the 1950s, and doesn't take itself too seriously, which always makes for a fun movie night. Jamie Young, who I believe is one of your friends.
That's one of my friends. Hey, Jamie.
Yeah, he says, hands down, one of my favorite films. And yes, I saw it in the theater when it was first released.
Wow.
Now, Rick over on the Facebook says it's probably daft and brilliant fun, and that's soundtrack. Cliff Chapman also on Facebook says absolutely astonishing, enormous fun. Hadn't realised quite how incredibly deviant it was till I watched it with my partner, to the point where me obsessively watching it as a child started to be weird. Looks incredible on the relatively recent 4K Blu-ray set. Possibly killed Brian Blesser's desire and ability to act, as he's never been the same since. Wish it had several sequels. Lion Men of Mongo, anyone? And it certainly would these days. Spiritual successors, Dungeons and Dragons, and Thor Ragnarok, and it has a stonking score. Robert Lunt says, I hear you declined your last meal. Chef will be displeased. You haven't heard anything until you heard Brian Blessed do Gordon's Alive in real life. Duncan Dares and soft porn for dads. It's a great film.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, it is soft porn for dads, isn't it?
And Stephen says Brian Blessed and Timothy Dalton chewed the scenery and owned this film. Watching it, you regret when either of them is not in scene and get excited when they appear again. It's a perfect storm of cheesiness, old school effects, and fun. The Queen soundtrack feels like an 80s version of a 1930s movie orchestra, in my humble opinion. So, yeah, safe to say that most people just really do like it. So, now we know what you think. It's time to find out how Flash ranks amongst those of us here. And as always, we'll begin with our guest. So, Rune, what are your thoughts on the movie? And could you round it off with your score out of 5 for Flash?
Thoughts on the movie? Is that what you said first?
Yes.
Man, I feel like I got this whole new passion for it.
I'm so sorry for just railroading you through this entire.
No, it's great.
One of us.
Basically, I have drank the Kool-Aid at this point. I might go put it back on now. I don't know. Let's see. I've got to find this documentary and everything. So yeah, I have a whole new appreciation. I definitely have to rewatch it. So I would rank it. I'm going to give it a 7, but creeping into an 8 right now.
Ooh,
yeah,
we do out of 5, so let's work
out
out
of
the
5.
maths on
My bad. Sorry, didn't translate.
That's okay. We can do the maths on it. So if what we say 3.5 maybe.
That sounds solid. But no, yeah, it's definitely a really fun watch, and I appreciate the camp out of it for all of that, and the special effects are just a lot of fun, and the fact that Queen did the music for this is just that makes it all the better. So yeah,
awesome.
Solid.
Just to clarify, you're happy to go with 3.5 out of 5, almost 4, but not quite.
Almost a 4.
Fair enough.
So nice one. Go for it then, Mike. Let's hear
my next. Okay. Sorry, my
do you want me
conclusion
go
tends
next?
to.
Then we can end on you because you're the most positive one of you.
Yeah, actually, you go for it. Mine sounds like a review from a film magazine anyway. It's so pompous, but never mind.
Right, this is mine. I thought this was going to be a difficult one. So many times you can revisit something that as a child you thought was the bee's knees and realize that you originally thought was awesome turns out to be nothing more than mediocre, held together by nostalgia and hope. So I returned once more to this with caution, already accepting of the fact that by the end, I would have chalked another one up to my being young. What actually happened was that immediately afterwards, I texted Mike with 3 words: movie fucking bangs. A wise man once said, don't think, feel. And while I fully admit that my love for this is simply down to those feelings it instilled in me as a child, however weird they may be, like I've said numerous times in the past, we like or dislike things based on what we ourselves bring to the table. And it's impossible to judge anything without that personal experience, especially in a movie like this. My own, this movie makes me feel all kinds of good. It could have been po-faced, gritty attempt at emulating the Raymond comic strips of old, but while it keeps the spirit of sci-fi pulp adventure, it gives us so much more. It's colourful, it's camp, it's childish, it's a panto, it's a social commentary, it's thrilling, it's horrific, it's sexy as fuck. It's full of performances from people that are enjoying it immensely, surrounded by a crew that cares about what they're putting together, and it has one of the greatest soundtracks ever written by musicians at the top of their game. It's deep, and at the same time, it's utterly shallow. It's so rich and exuberant that it shouldn't work at all. And yet it does. It's a cheese fest, yes, and it has its flaws. It's problematic. Some of the effects are a little BBC worldwide, and the science is a joke. But 10 minutes into it, if you have a soul, that is, you just do not care. You can't even say they don't make them like this anymore, because even for the period it's emulating, they never made them like this. It's bizarre, it's ludicrous, it's scene-chewingly fantastic, but more than any of that, it's just plain fun. So I'll say it again, movie fucking bangs.
Nice.
And I'm going to give it 4.5.
Oh. Okay. Right. Apologies for this, as I said. And I promise, by the way, Rune and any first-time listeners, I'm not normally this obnoxious. I just really like this film.
Go for it. I'm here.
Movies exist for a lot of different reasons. They can educate us about the world around us. They can inform us about social issues or make us think about our place in the world. And sometimes they can just exist for you to have fun. Okay, this film nowadays looks like it has the production value of a cheap pantomime, the acting of one at times, and it's not about to win any Oscars. Maybe it's because I came to it earlier and it's been a continuous presence in my life. Maybe it's my love of sci-fi and comic books, which this film helped to spawn. Maybe it's the Brit in me who loves to support an underdog and appreciates a tone of subtle satire or parody. But I just love this. It's a perfect multi-purpose film as well. You can watch it while getting drunk with your friends, talk over it Mystery Science Theater style, enjoy it with your family, if you're me anyway, or just stick it on to cheer you up in down moments. Even the questionable moments feel like they're mocking old stereotypes and making fun. And there's that word again. Hodges says that whatever else happened, the people making this film had fun. You may not think it's a great film, you may not even like it, but it's that sense of fun that seems to have transferred to at least some viewers, myself included, through some sort of alchemy. If you let yourself, if you suspend disbelief, and if you appreciate that nothing here is to be taken seriously, I defy you not to just have fun. You may say it's not great cinema, but isn't that a great usage of any art form? And I actually give it 5 out of 5. Nice. Because of course I did.
Of course.
We knew straight away, really, didn't we?
Nobody's surprised by that. So that gives you a final score then for Flash Gordon of 4.3 recurring. So we'll clear 4.3 out of 5. Very good score. I'm happy with that.
That's pretty good. I think after 40 years, we can safely say. So,
well, who wants to podcast forever?
So I think that's pretty respectable enough, Mike.
Yeah, I think so.
And what about you, Rune? Shocked, or are you quite pleased with that?
I'm pleased with that. I've learned a lot today, and
You've learned you now want to go out and buy the 4K.
Right? Yeah.
Hold up, I have a notification. Oh, they blocked me on Facebook. Okay.
He's lying.
Awesome.
This has really been great. I appreciate the info dump. It was awesome.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, that's it from us here on Silver Screen Cult Classics. Not only do we owe everything to Flash, but also our guests. So as always, all that's left to do is thank them for joining me today. So thank you, Mike.
Hey, I was always going to be here. You don't have to thank me.
Anything new that you're wanting to promote while we're here, buddy?
No, I will. I'm still doing my best to try and bring attention to the Tyneside Cinema's plight that it currently needs to raise money to stay open because, as you know, they're showing some great classic films that I'm really enjoying seeing on the big screen. So I will leave the link in the description to that if you want to donate anything to help the people that live near the Tyneside Cinema to still have a little local independent cinema to go to. It is fantastic. So I do recommend, at the very least, check out the website and have a look around the place virtually. And that's all.
Brilliant. And also a big thank you to First Timer Rune for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful.
Brilliant. Have you had fun?
I've had a lot of fun. Much fun, really. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Would you be willing to return at some point, or
if
are you going to block us both?
Yeah, if y'all are willing to have me, I'd be into that.
Oh, definitely.
Rocky Horror. Also, my husband's like, please invite me.
Well, you're always welcome. Is there anything you'd like to promote while you're here with us? Any upcoming projects or anywhere the listeners can reach you?
You can find me on Insta at runevaughn.com, and I spell it the proper way, which is VAUGHAN. And yeah, I don't have anything like really to promote right now other than just myself, because unless you live in my specific small town, I don't think y'all are coming over to see the theater.
Well, you're welcome to, to promote that. Anything around there if you want. You never know. We might have listeners.
That's true. You might. Jamie is listening, apparently. So, for Jamie, we're wrapping up, I guess, in the last couple of weeks of rehearsals for Ruthless the Musical, in which place I am playing the character Sylvia St. Croix, which is phenomenally over the top farcy character. So.
Well, you've had some perfect people to coach you on that.
Oh, I know. It's definitely my niche. It's my niche on the stage. And it's a lot of fun for me because this character is an all-female cast, but this specific character, it was written for a female, but the original casting, they couldn't find a woman to play it that played it the way they really wanted it, but they found a guy to play it. So a lot of times this is played in drag. And as a non-binary actor, it's like I get to play this really awesome, like potentially drag kind of character, but I still have to wear heels. So, but yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. It's been a lot of fun.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, we'll post all links in the description. So if you out there are interested in any of our guests or what they're getting up to, then please give them a click and give you support. You'll be more than glad you did. And speaking of support, it may not sound like it sometimes, but a lot of work goes into these podcasts as well as money. So if you did like what you hear today, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and also please consider clicking on that Ko-fi link in the description and helping us out if you're so inclined. We'd be incredibly grateful. And it will help us continue to deliver these shows to you. Isn't that right, Mike?
Absolutely. And yeah, you can always find us on any one of about 1,000 current social media sites, including, as news has currently just reached me, the newly rebranded X. You can follow me on X now if you want, for at least a little while, I guess.
I say for the next few days, but by the time this goes out, it might have already imploded. If you were listening in today and were shouting at us for missing something, didn't agree, or just want in, then please don't hesitate to drop us a line either in the comments or any of the social media and let us know. We're always on the lookout for guests that are interested in discussing their favourite or not so favourite movies, and we'd love to hear from you. Who knows, maybe there's something coming up in the near future you'd love to talk about. Speaking of which, coming up, it's a total eclipse of the sun next week as Cult Classics goes musical. That's right, we couldn't help but notice that strange and interesting plant in the window. So join Mike and I as we're joined by a guest or two as we discuss Frank Oz's 1986 Little Shop of Horrors.
Feed my DK!
Suddenly Seymour. That makes my heart happy.
So all that's left to say is thank you all for joining us today. We hope to see you next time. And until then, remember,
Long live Flash. You've saved your Earth. Have a nice day.
Yeah!
You have been listening to the Silver Screen Podcast, hosted by Michael Wilson and DK. Created, produced, and edited by Michael Wilson. Behind the scenes sections and additional material produced by DK. Music by Timeless Journey. More information can be found at soundcloud.com/Timeless Journey. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Silver Screen Podcast, or look for the Silver Screen Podcast under Facebook groups. Links to all our social media accounts and more are in this episode's description. This podcast is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Just look for Silver Screen, Hit or Miss Star Trek. This has been a Mike's Podcast production. Copyright 2022. Thank you for listening.